The same noise, yeah.
Good evening.
My sneakers sounded like.
Everyone, welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board. This is a regular scheduled meeting this evening. And as usual, begin with introductions, and I'll start with Joanne.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Jim Raymond in the wrong seat.
Gail Breck, alternate and recording secretary.
Tim Redmond.
Scott Ozana, Town Engineer.
Barbara Griffin?
David Pierce, an alternate.
Thank you, everyone. For everyone's notice, Scott is not a voting member. He is here in an official capacity as the town engineer, and we've asked him to join us at the table. Okay, Joanne, I guess we have corrections and acceptance of the minutes of the September 8th meeting. Did you have something you wanted to tell us about those minutes?
Yes, if, I just need to go to that page.
Where are we? In the packet?
We're in the packet. It starts on
127?
page,
Right here.
starting on page 4.
Okay, so it's in our packet that we got at home.
That's
Okay.
on page 4, but the corrections on page 5. For the deletions.
Joanne, could you please explain what's going on?
So this is the notice of decision for the Randall and Kimberly Karen application that was approved.
J or J?
I
That
will
was-
ask politely that everyone silence their phones. Thank you very much, everyone.
That was approved on September 8th. And the list of conditions are here, as you can see. On page 5, we have redlined some of the conditions. So the first, because this was a conditional use permit, I didn't realize that some of these conditions we never include on a conditional use. So I'd like for those to be removed. And then on the very bottom, number 19, the wording of that condition was not the same wording that was in the staff report. And I actually watched the meeting to make sure there was no, further discussion that the board may have changed the wording, but they didn't. So the wording should be as stated right below that, also numbered 19 in red.
Does anyone have any questions for Joanne about the number 8, 9, 10, 11, 14 being stricken?
I have a question.
Please.
How did this get caught?
Mr. Karen came in about number 19 and said, I didn't agree to that,
Okay.
which was true. So the reason this is on there in the first place, you probably remember that Eric from DPW was working with
With
Mr.
them,
Karen on
yeah.
this for months and months. And they
Right.
finally, he had contacted all of the departments to find out what it was that they needed for the driveway. And this is what the fire department told him. And so it got transferred when Scott did his comments, he included that language.
Okay.
And then I included it in the staff
No,
report,
I get it,
conditions
okay.
of approval.
But that's how it got caught, was
Yeah.
Karen read it.
Mhm.
Okay.
And how about 19? Is everybody consent to number 19?
See, my other question,
Jim?
I mean, that's what the agreement was, it is. It's sort of an empty provision, because to highly recommend, that doesn't have any enforcement ability. It doesn't mean anything. But if that's what was approved and discussed, then that's what was.
And that was the fire department's recommendation?
Yes, because the fire department can't tell someone that they have to put in sprinklers according to the state law.
Okay.
So they can only recommend and work with the applicant and see if the applicant will agree.
Okay.
But we can find an application standard premature if there's not fire protection. So we do have
Mhm.
remedies, it's just apparently we chose not to invoke them
And I
here.
think it was because these were two existing
Existing.
lots.
Yeah, okay. I'm not arguing with the end result, I just don't want us to.
Are there any other changes or corrections? Excuse me, I'm gonna do this a lot. Please, for the minutes, David?
This is for September 22nd we're doing right now, right?
No, we're doing September 8th.
Well, it's not really the minutes, it's the notice of decision.
No.
So you're asking for a motion to correct the conditions,
Correct.
and the applicant agrees with this correction, I assume?
Yes, he does. And so does his attorney.
So this
I don't care about the attorney.
probably should have been noticed as a separate item from corrections to the minutes, correct, Joanne?
Follow up, if I look at the action items on your packet, it looks like we're actually doing number 4 now, which is a request to correct, and it's not the minutes, it's a request to correct the notice of decision for map 5, lot 89 and 92.
Yes.
And it looks like number 1 should probably be correction acceptance of the minutes of September 22nd, which was our last meeting, right?
So the last meeting was September 22nd. The correction that I'm asking for currently is September 8th.
8th. Okay.
No.
It is on number 4.
So these are independent.
Right, so
of
it's
each
number
other.
4, and it's independent.
So let's talk about number 4, the request to correct the minutes and the notice of decision for that map and lot number.
We can, Mr. Chair?
Yeah?
We cannot correct minutes retroactively. Whatever we did at the meeting, we did. We are correcting these conditions, and today's minutes will reflect that we took that action. We can't go back in time.
So we have to strike the word correct minutes in number 4.
Correct.
We cannot correct.
Yeah,
minutes.
it shouldn't even be in there. I only had this on the agenda to correct the notice of decision, not the minutes.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
I have minutes
All right.
taken up.
Now we're
Because
getting
I
there.
realized the same thing as Jim had stated.
So do you need a vote on this, Joanne?
Yes.
We do.
Okay, so I will, if no one has any more discussion on it, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the request to correct the notice of decision for map 5 lot,
Do you want to appoint David Nye?
I'm sorry, thank you for doing that. David and Gail will be voting members this evening in the absence of 2 of our regular members. Thank you, Gail. So we have a motion to grant the request to change to correct the notice of decision for map 5 lot 89 and 92. Who made the motion?
I thought I did.
You
At least
did, Jim?
I thought about it.
I don't know, I don't remember,
Did
I didn't
anybody
open my
second?
There wasn't a
mouth.
second.
Huh?
I don't think there was a second.
I'll second it.
So Jim and Barbara. Okay,
Thank
Oh.
you.
any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, passes. Okay. So now we're back to the minutes of September the
22nd.
22nd.
I have a correction on page 10. Very last sentence, where the town engineer said, he'll let them know the fence has to be on the inside of the fence. I believe the second word fence should be screening vegetation. Right, Scott?
On page 10 of.
The minutes of last meeting.
minutes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right at the very bottom. David, I would agree with you.
Yeah,
From my
that's what
memory,
we were
yes.
talking
It's just a
about.
typo. My mind was thinking fence and I just
You just,
typed.
you just
Yeah.
repeated the
Yeah.
word, yeah.
So it should say,
Screening,
The fence has to be on the inside
Inside the trees,
of the
yeah.
screening
oh,
vegetation.
okay.
Okay, any other corrections to the minutes of September 22nd? 22nd? Yes.
Correct.
All right, seeing none. Do we have a motion on that?
I'll move as corrected.
Second.
David and Barbara. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I gleefully is on vacation this week.
Jim is abstaining.
We expect a report at the end of the meeting.
In the mail.
You have something else, David?
Uh,
Before we,
I will abstain.
you're going to abstain as well?
Yes.
Okay. We have 2 abstains. All right, all those in favor, say aye. We already did that. Never mind. Okay, where are we, Joanne? You want to do the tracking form?
Sure.
Okay.
So, excuse me, Woodland Village is currently under construction, as you probably know. They would, the plans themselves, when they were approved way back when, the plans showed granite curbing throughout the entire project. They would like to change that to bituminous curbing and only put the granite in the entranceways. And I thought because we did, you know, there was no restriction that they had to do, it was their idea that they wanted to do the granite. That the board may look at this as a non-material change, since bituminous is allowed.
So this is not the tracking form?
No. Did, oh, I messed up, I'm sorry. I skipped ahead. I have too many things tonight, I can't remember.
So let's talk about the, before we do the tracking form, let's talk about the request for the change to the approved plan.
Okay.
Discussion by the membership.
When do we require granite on streets?
We don't specify in the regulations where we require granite. It's mentioned, it really just mentions curb. The only place it mentions material is actually in a checklist in the end of the regulations. At least that's the only way I could find it searching for the material. It says granite or bituminous.
So when we amend our regs, we should address that.
Okay.
Well, we can discuss it, but part of the discussion we've had in the past is the granite curbing is actually difficult for DPW when regs have it with a
This is
lot
a
of
private
things.
road.
This is-
anyway.
this is within
Yeah,
the
and this is a private road,
Yeah,
but the
road.
regulations would have to do with,
I personally would like to see them provide, Joanne, an amended plan that shows where the granite is gonna end and where the bituminous will begin, because if you say it's in the beginning, they might put 10 feet in, and I'd like to know what they wanna do.
They did include the, I have, did they have it in their package?
No, they only have a letter.
right.
Thought about that tonight.
Have you heard of this already, Scott?
I have, yeah. I don't really
What,
have
do
the
you know what they
instructions.
showed you?
They showed at the beginning of the
Yeah,
entranceway.
it's probably like 50 feet or so.
Yeah,
I thought I
roughly
brought
about
the
that.
plan with me, but now I'm not seeing it. It was just a folded plan.
Well, I think we should state something for the record regarding the footage that we're permitting them to
It's too bad.
keep as granite and change.
So it basically comes, yeah, it looks like the first 50-foot station, or the 50 station.
What is the center island?
The center island was always proposed to be bituminous,
Okay.
if I remember correctly. Where's the call out for that? Yeah, it was
Okay.
bituminous.
So if the board is okay with this, then we would have to state something for the record that we require them to go 50 feet in.
And that's where they're gonna end it.
Well, they
Show-
can
they're
show it on
showing
the plan,
ended.
but unless we say so. it's-
Can we ask what's Scott's recommendation on this?
What's my recommendation? From a DPW standpoint, where we don't maintain this road, it's not really a,
Well, turn that around. How do we assure ourselves that the curbing is maintained? Because I assume there's a safety issue and a drainage issue.
so, no matter what the curb is, say they come in and they overlay, at some certain point, there won't be enough reveal that'll kind of, you lose that. It gives you some protection from vehicular traffic jumping up. So at some point you lose that, but it's a couple overlays. Without looking at the drainage design, I don't know how deep their gutter gets, but I can't imagine it's very deep. So it's not a big deal from one to the other, I don't think.
I will say this,
Versus
when
bituminous.
you change from vertical granite to bituminous, vertical granite prevents people from driving off the edge of the road and parking on the shoulders. Bituminous curbing allows
Yeah, people.
whatever parking they want to do.
So this isn't like berm. This is because it's where there's sidewalk. So it's they include
8-inch up.
detail. So
There it is right there.
yeah, it's mold one.
It's a
So
mold, is it mold, and what's the height on that, 8-inch?
that is. Is that metric? 165.
Yeah, must be in centimeters or something.
I can't do that conversion in my head. I'm sorry.
At least
I'm not
it's
a metric person.
it's not a berm, which they can easily jump over.
Yeah.
I
So
would-
this would be with the
That
sidewalk.
would be a little less, permissible for jumping over the curb to park on the grass on the shore. Okay. Board members?
Here's my one.
First of all, do we deem this a material change, board members, or non-material change?
I guess I'd ask Scott the same question. Is this material from any of the municipal interests that we have?
Is this what?
Material change from any municipal interest, any interest of the town or us as a planning?
I don't believe it is, no.
And is it material for the safety of the residents of the,
I don't believe so.
or the function of the drainage systems?
No, I don't believe so.
So I make a motion, we find it's a non-material change.
Second.
Do they have to be voted on separately, or do you want to include the permit?
No, I just want to create procedures so we don't need to.
The fire department also had no issues with it.
So I think we can act on the,
Okay, well, let's act on Jim's motion too, that this is considered a non-material change based on the town engineer's recommendation. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye also. Now, how about the request to,
I have a question for me.
Go
Are
ahead.
we going to require an amended plan showing the change?
he has a copy right there.
Scott, that show it?
We typically require any changes on the as-built.
Yeah, we would need it on, at least on the as-built, and I think Patty noted some issues with what was presented on those plans,
Yeah.
about a couple
So they have
things,
to
so,
be corrected.
yeah.
Okay, so I'll move that we approve the requested change beyond 50 feet from the, is it from the entry? Scott, how do we describe that?
Yes, from the flare to entry, I maybe would call it, because it's the
Okay.
flaring
Sure,
part.
sure,
Just the
correct.
entry, you can call it the
Curb
entry.
bituminous curb, subject with the condition that the change be shown on the as-built plan.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve the change beyond 50 foot from the entrance and to be shown on the as-built.
Actually,
Any discussion on the motion?
And I guess we have to show findings now on the basis of the county engineer's
Recommendation.
recommendation that it doesn't have a material change.
Okay.
Function. Make up some words.
Okay, and any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passed.
And we have one other item for that same project. So they're putting up, or they actually put up years ago, cash to, in an escrow account for the
Off-site improvements?
intersection off-site improvements that were never really done. So we have, in an escrow account, $181,680. And Adam from Public Works is recommending that these fees go into a separate account and put it aside for when work is done at that intersection at a later date.
Why are we worrying about a ledger action with this money in a different account? It's still held in escrow.
I don't know, it's the finance department that asked for it.
So
It's
it's
just-
carrying money in an account that
It's just for a different purpose, I guess, I'm not really sure. This is what we had to do with because finance requested, this is the way we do it.
We're just trying to track all this stuff, I assume, to
Right.
keep it.
Well, if you read the letter.
the motion is not clear.
If you read the.
Well,
the
they
pa-
just paid the money recently.
Right, that's the issue. If you read the
The money
letter-
was due years and years
So
ago.
this is accepting the money.
Correct,
Right, because they didn't record, so they never paid.
right.
We just continued and continued
And then
and
interest
continued.
built, it was originally
10 years.
$150.
I voted against it at the end, the last couple of years.
And
Oh, okay.
then the DPW made some improvements out there, but certainly not the improvements that were scheduled.
Right.
Okay. So has anybody made a motion to accept the money from?
This is a condition of the approval as
Yes.
extended and extended and extended. So I'll move that we accept the funds, if that's the correct amount. Has that been verified?
Actually, it was less when the project was approved,
No, but with
significantly
interest.
less, but I guess they built in some,
Yeah, you build in interest on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. So that number, we have a check in the amount,
And that is the correct amount?
yes.
Okay. On that basis, I'll move that we accept it and let the finance department put it where they wish.
A
Okay.
second.
Motion's been made to accept the funds and have finance be charged with
Accounting for it.
handling the funds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Barb, did you vote?
I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you. Didn't hear your voice. Okay, Joanne, I think the next thing we need to do is, I think we need to notify the gallery here of anyone who has asked to be
Continue.
continued or whatever the reason be. Could you go through the agenda, starting with the old business, which is, I see they are here. What do we have beyond that?
So we have a requested continuance for the Chattel Ave project. They would like to be continued to October 27th.
And,
And then we also have a request to continue map 34, lot 14, which is 9 Prospect Street, and they would also like to be continued to October 27th.
so if anyone's here to hear those applications and speak in public hearing, we're sorry that they're not here, but don't want to waste your time staying here for the whole meeting.
Yeah, let's act on the request
So,
first.
when are they want to be continued, both of them to the
I got my
27th?
letter, because it said that the last one we were here, they were gonna have the continuance. This is for Chateau?
Yes.
Now it's not happening again. This is twice we've come already with this.
Yeah.
I don't appreciate it.
They've requested another continuance.
Well, we didn't request it.
Call planning board on the 27th.
You can call the office ahead of time, make sure they're going to be here that night, so you don't have to come in.
Because it was on our agenda. All right.
All right, is there a way that's going to be avoided in the future where these applications have been requested to be continued? Do you have someplace you put it on the website or anything so people can read a website?
Patty
Okay.
usually amends the agenda and then they repost.
Okay.
One just came in this afternoon.
Right.
So how many times do people check it?
Okay.
Yeah, our option is, if this is a multiple extension, is to
Deny
continue
it.
to a date uncertain, and then they have to renotice.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair for people, so they don't,
This,
Yeah.
the Chattel Ave has already been noticed. Patty noticed it yesterday, I
well,
believe.
but that's not sending out the required notices of the hearing, so that people don't get that notice.
Right, but she's already sent them out for that one because she's not here tomorrow and they have to go out by a certain date. We're like always up against deadlines.
Yeah.
So it's hard to make everything work if you deviate a little bit.
So let's talk about the first one, Joanne, so we can act on it.
So,
Map 23, lot 13 and 11. That is Chattel Avenue.
Chattel Avenue. So he's asking to continue to 1027. That's the one I just mentioned, that the notices to the abutters were already mailed.
And this is, how many times has this one been requested? This is the second
Second.
request? Well, I think we could clearly state for the record that if it's continued, if it has to be requested a third time, that we might
Well,
consider.
but if I can just stop, I thought from the correspondence provided on this that it was being continued because there was a notice issue that Patty caught in regards to what she noticed. And so there's actually an email from Patty to the applicant for this saying, yes, please request a continuance.
Okay.
Well, that's
This
because,
was because of the wetland report, right?
yeah,
The
he-
wetland
okay.
he
report wasn't
provided the
submitted on
incorrect
time.
wetland report.
Oh,
And
is
I
that-
said that this
Okay.
can't go.
All right,
So
okay.
then he had to get a wetland scientist to redo it, and that took a little while.
Okay.
That was the reason.
Yeah, but you know something? These people have to do their job. They're doing the applications. It's not fair to the public that comes in here and sits around for half an hour already and find out that they wasted their time. I'm tired of this. We see way too much of this at this board. We need to take a stand one of these days and deny it without prejudice and make them refile. Just get it over with. Maybe somebody will get the idea after that. If we stop this nonsense. Okay, do we have a motion on this map 23, lot 13 and 11, continuance to 1027? Somebody want to make a motion so we can get going here?
I'll move it.
Anybody want a second?
I'll second, but I think the message is, next time we're not gonna.
Yeah, the message is clear.
Date certain.
All those in favor of the continuance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions? None. Okay, map 34, lot 14.
Okay, it's map 34, lot 14, request a continuance because he had many items that were outstanding. He received the staff report. He started his work on amending the plan and realized that he would be sitting here all night to just get continued anyway. So he felt it was better use of everyone's time if he just asked for a continuance. And he's bringing in the revised plans on Monday.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
That's fair.
Okay.
Just to make it clear for the audience, we're discussing
Nine.
an item on 9 Prospect Street.
I'll move to continue.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, abstentions? Motion passes. So, but what is our next order of business, Joanne?
Okay, we have a letter.
This concerns the Hawk application.
But that's not
I
before us
thought we had
yet.
something we had to
Yeah,
do before we can
let's
hear
wait till-
applicants.
Yeah, let's wait till we get there.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not the next thing on the agenda, is it?
no,
But
but
Joanne has something to add to the
I
agenda.
wanted to recommend that we go into non-public
Yes, that's what I was
session
looking for from you.
Okay.
based on this letter, and that would fall under, find my agenda here. Yeah, let me just look here. That would fall under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, letter L.
Do you need a motion to do that, Joanne?
Yes.
You're gonna request that we do that now and not when we come up?
Rather than have people come back and go in, it just makes more sense to.
Well, should we just do it when we get to that
Yeah,
before we start that
I would prefer-
application?
You want to
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
Taking
Okay,
Because
that's
we,
fine.
because that way we're not asking the people for the applications before that to come in and out of the room.
Okay, that's fine. So I think that's it for this list of correspondence.
So we ready to go to
It's
old
only
business,
one
Joanne?
two applications.
Yes.
Okay, old business, map 9, 15, 16, and 18. Could you please bring us up to speed?
Okay, so the first one is map 9, lots 15, 16, and 18, which is a continuation from the meeting of September 8th. This is for a 3-lot subdivision and lot line adjustment, creating one additional lot. The property owners are Strategic Contracting LLC, and it is located at 83 and 87 Tyrrell Hill Road. So let me just find my other report. So the applicant provided us with an updated report, or I'm sorry, an updated plan on 9/27. Staff did review and made comments. At the last meeting, you heard the application was found complete and the waivers were approved. So there are still some outstanding issues, which you can see in the staff report. Some of them have been addressed on the new plans, and there are others that are outstanding. But in the list of conditions of approval is what we need to really focus in on. Staff is recommending that the plan be approved with conditions. And I did receive today the easement for the shared driveway, so that is one of the conditions of approval, so that will be reviewed prior to the plans being signed.
Did we not find there was no regional impact at the prior meeting?
Yes.
So we need a motion to begin the process.
So this hearing was continued, so we need to open back up the public hearing.
And then we need to add no regional impact, and we have to ask the applicant to waive the 65-day clock?
No, that was from before.
Well, you mean this?
It was on our staff report on
Oh.
page 12, like we had to do
Okay.
again.
That, it says the board found the application complete and also found the application has no regional impact. That's already been done.
We're starting on page 12.
Oh, so you need to look at the revised. This is one of the ones that was revised, and I don't know if you printed it, but it is in the packet in front of you. It's a packet that looks like this.
Too many packets to try to figure out here.
Page 7.
I can't figure it out when I'm doing it.
I see page 12 on it, you
Yes.
dropped those. Okay.
Got it right here. Well, this is in the,
This is the one that she showed us. That's the revised packet.
So can you tell us what's different? Because I've marked up the original one.
I'd have to go through every item. It might be easier for Eric to do that.
you mean Scott?
Sure.
Oh, you mean Eric, the applicant,
The applicant.
engineer?
Because like, it'll say underneath, there'll be a comment, and then it says ECM response, so those things have been addressed.
And what page are these we're talking
What are you
about?
looking at
On the
there?
new
So-
staff report.
So it starts on page 9,
Starts on page 9, okay.
under DPW
Now,
comments.
before we invite the applicant to speak, does anybody from this, do we have any other thing we need to do prior to bringing the applicant up to the table?
No.
Not,
Can we ask Scott, before we go through all those, whether those changes have been made to his satisfaction, or which ones are still open items that need to be discussed?
well, we're gonna do them one at a
Honestly,
time.
I'm a little confused right now. So I had new comments for, which I have what I sent, which made it in here. But then when I go to the suggested conditions of approval, there's a lot of my old comments that have been addressed. And I don't think my new comments are in here. So that's. That's what I don't get right.
So the list
So when I'm
of-
looking at approval conditions,
The list of recommendations, those suggested conditions of approval in this revised report does not include your most recent changes. Is that correct, Scott? From what you can determine?
I don't think they. It doesn't appear, and it seems like there's stuff that was old comments still in here.
I guess I'm not sure what we're gonna do with this, because
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah,
looking
take
at
the
page
time.
9 of the updated staff report?
This is the updated one, right?
Yeah, Page 9.
So page 9, yeah, these are my
Okay.
new comments, these,
All right,
and
but
then
if you
page
look
10.
at the staff comment, if the staff recommendation for approval, if you look at page 13, what they did was, number 3 is all technical comments listed under DPW comments, which is what
Oh,
Scott
okay.
was saying he did, shall be addressed and then approved by the town engineer.
Okay.
The balance of what is written as conditions for 1 through 7 are the same and somewhat, they're the same as our sort of standard position. 8 and 9 are somewhat different in number. They go with 9 and 10, and that, of course, is the crux of the fire sprinkler system issue with this. And then 10 through 32 are slightly condensed. There are a few that have dropped off from the original recommendation.
So like number 14, do you all have label existing and proposed driveway surface material?
Correct.
So that's been done, the provide driveway profiles has been done.
Okay.
Well, we'll go through the list very
Okay.
So we
quickly.
can just cross those off.
Yeah,
We'll have you just tell us what has been
Okay.
taken care of.
yeah,
we've
that's
got-
why I was confused. I just saw conditions here that I had gone through the plan set and didn't
See them
think.
in.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna, while you guys discuss, I'm gonna go through and make sure I get it all
Is this
straightened
something
out.
that's fair to have Scott do on the fly? I mean, you're saying this without,
It's all right, I can go through, I have my original comments for this application, for this go-around, so I can do a cross-check and so,
okay.
So Joanne, before we get into this, start on page 7 of your revised report. Just talking about waivers and acceptance review. Is that all taken care of?
Yes,
Yes.
How about waivers requested, section 6 development regulations?
that's been done.
We voted on that. Okay, approved. Planning comments, provide all new easements for review. Has that been done?
No. Well,
Provide
we
shared
have
driveway
one
easement maintenance agreement and the town's waiver of liability.
We have the deed, but not the waiver, not the maintenance agreement. We have the easement deed, but not the maintenance agreement.
So you
Or the
do not
town's
have the
waiver.
maintenance agreement.
Or the town's waiver of liability, but those items are always
Conditions.
conditions, and we do it later.
I want to know what's been done and what hasn't been.
Okay,
And provide all new easements for review. That has not been done.
no, that has not been done.
So the only thing you have out of 1 and 2 is the shared driveway easement. That's all you have right now.
Correct.
Okay. Conservation Commission has a recommendation?
That's been addressed, it's shown on the plan.
Okay. No comments from PD, DPW comments, start on page 9. So we will start with the DPW comments, Joan.
But do you want
Um,
to wait until
But wait till what?
Scott has his final answer?
Well, I'm not gonna go through the application and then backtrack. I'm gonna take the time to get it done right and be done with it. Because if you backtrack, you're gonna forget something. So, are you gonna ask Mr. Mitchell to respond to the plain comments as well?
Yes, so some of these he has already responded in his letter. But some of them,
There was a further DPW.
I don't
So
know.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Mitchell and the applicant to identify themselves to the record, please.
My name is Eric Mitchell. My office prepared these plans.
I'm Ralph Starris, owner of the property.
Thank you. So, Mr. Mitchell, if you choose to respond to our discussion on these plan items, I ask you to be very brief with a simple answer, yes, no, it's been taken care of, it has not been, we're gonna take care of it, something simple. We have a lot to do tonight, I don't wanna drag this application on for 45 minutes. So, first one, Scott, I'm gonna let you lead.
Where are we?
Plan comments, page 9, number 1.
sorry.
This is on the DPW comments, not on our conditions of.
Yeah.
DPW engineering comments.
So,
Has it been worked out?
number 1 still needs to be worked out. That's the easement lines aren't drawn all the way through the parcel. Number 2, it's just,
Let's hold on. Mr. Mitchell, you're going to take care of that?
Yes, the only confusion is that we do have a 30-foot easement going up to the lot out back, a common driveway easement. And the easement in the front was always 60 feet wide, was all the existing. So we'll maintain that as 60, but yes, we'll clear that up.
Okay. And your DPW response is okay, Scott, the next paragraph down? You good with that, what you responded?
yes.
Okay, number 2, multiple instances of plan text overlap. Scott?
Yeah, it's just some plan cleanup. I actually spoke with Eric on the phone earlier today. I
It's
think
taken care of.
He's gonna take care of it, yeah.
Okay, 3,
That still needs to be provided, the grading of the driveway.
Mr. Mitchell knows that.
Yes.
Number 4,
This one's a silly one, but you need that note that says, you know, an intent to cut is either not required or has been properly filed. It's in our regs, so it's.
And I believe that's already on the plan, is note number 21.
Oh, okay, I guess I missed that, I apologize.
Okay, number 5?
There's still some under drain on Terrell Hill that needs to be shown, so that hasn't been addressed just yet.
Question,
Barbara,
can we back up?
please?
I just read note 21, and maybe I'm just having brain lock. Is that how the note normally reads on an intent to cut? According to the assessing office, an intent to cut is not required as long as a building permit has been obtained? Is that how the note normally reads?
Makes no sense.
Right. That's not the note that I think I'm used to seeing.
Yeah.
So that is not.
If I may, we contacted the assessor's office, and they said that we do not need an intent to cut. So putting a note that's saying an intent to cut must be filed is not necessarily correct, and that's the reasoning why it's on there. We'll put whatever you need to, but we're not building a road, we're not doing detention ponds and things like that, so no intent to cut is required, based on our conversation with the
Yeah, but this
assessor's
note
office.
makes no sense.
Can you read it again?
It says, an intent to cut is not required as long as a building permit has been obtained.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense.
And that's on what, on Mr. Mitchell's
21.
plan or on our
It's
stuff?
on Mr. Mitchell's plan. When he said, I have taken care of that in note 21, I read note 21, and note 21 does not appear to address the issue in the normal manner, nor does this note make any sense.
But Mr. Mitchell is using the wording that he was given, so I'm assuming there's no,
It's,
maybe we just need to put in the correct wording, whatever it is.
I'm not disputing that we can just clean it up. I just want it clear that the wording currently as exists in 21 is not acceptable. Because this could imply that we could cut anywhere on any of these lots as long as we have a building permit. A building permit.
I'm gonna put up an outhouse, you know, it's,
So do we just need to get Mr. Mitchell to confirm that he's gonna readdress that in?
Yep, to the
But I-
satisfaction
But
of
yeah,
the,
but I think we have
To
to
the
tell him what the
satisfaction
answer
of the
is.
town engineer and planning director.
correct.
Yeah, I think that has to come.
You good with that,
from-
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Thank you. 6, previous DBW comment, proximity to wetland, provide an erosion control plan. Have they provided an erosion control plan? Scott?
They added the erosion control plan to the erosion control information on their driveway plan, but there's some plan cleanup needed because it says there's erosion control.
Have you
plans
discussed
on the
it with
cover
him?
sheet. Yes.
Okay, move on.
Uh,
7,
So 7 was interesting. I went out to the site and found that they've installed a 12-inch culvert under the driveway, which isn't shown on the plans, and it's clearly new. So I just wanted a little more information about that. I spoke to Eric, or Mr. Mitchell, on the phone this afternoon, and he was unaware of it being installed, so, yeah, that's where
so
I am
that's
on that one.
outstanding.
Yeah.
We're not gonna even talk about it. Okay, next one, per development regulations.
This just talks about making sure that the head wall is constructed to town regulations and that the pipe is long enough per the regulations, so that's still outstanding too. I didn't do any measurements out there,
But
but
there's no
the head
issue,
walls
there's
in.
no issues with that, I'm assuming.
No.
Right, yeah.
So what are we looking, we can look at them for plan corrections, or what are we looking at them for, Scott?
Yeah, I think plan corrections, I think this can all be cleaned up with plan corrections. I don't think it's anything major.
Okay. Go ahead, number 9.
So number 9, while I was on site there, basically what it looks like was done was there were 2 trenches maybe dug across the driveway, and they put in clean stone to convey water from one side of the driveway to the other. And I'm basically asking, how is this going to be handled in the final condition, because that's no way to bring water from one side to the other, so.
Do you plan to address that, Mr. Mitchell?
We will. That's not something that we were part of, but we will make sure we address it with DBW.
So
Wait.
7, 8, and 9 can, go ahead, Barbara.
What do you mean we weren't a part of?
My office didn't have anything to do with,
It was just
Putting that
a
in.
pre-construction. When
Yeah.
we initially laid the driveway material in, we hadn't graded the left side yet, so it puddled. So we just put some trenches so the
Okay.
water could get across.
Alright.
Yeah,
So-
and I just, if there's an
And just
issue,
stone trenches.
if there's an issue during construction, obviously you want
Yeah.
to solve that after the fact.
That
like-
whole side's gonna
Yeah.
get dug up for the
Mhm.
electrical conduit anyway.
Okay,
So 7, 8, and 9 can be handled administratively with you, Scott?
I believe so.
Okay. So that takes care of the DPW plan edits. Joanne?
Yes.
Okay, so we're moving on to approval conditions. Should we be hearing from the public hearing before we move forward, Joanne? Or should we continue to discuss, to talk about all the comments we have and get them out in the open before we
Yeah, I think
open
you
the public
should
hearing?
discuss the comments first.
Okay. So Joanne, I'm gonna put it off to you now. Page 10, number 10.
Okay, so these are still DPW's comments?
Oh, these are still DPW?
Mhm.
Yeah, these are just the approval conditions from the DPW's side.
And
They're,
these are recommended by you?
yeah, these are recommended by me. A lot of them are just the boilerplate type things.
Okay.
They're really kind of just notes that'll be check boxes as the
So
items come in.
10 through 17 are standard checkbox
Yeah.
things.
Yes.
Okay, so we can go past them now. Fire department comments, Joanne?
Yes, so we included the fire department's wishes in the conditions of approval, which is they can go ahead and do the sprinklers as agreed to by the owner. However, if they add additional lots at that time, they will be required to install a culvert, a cistern.
I have a question on that. We cannot bind future boards, and we don't have that application in front of us, so I just don't know how we have the authority when there's no proposal to put some limitation.
Well, we've limited subdivision in the past that you cannot subdivide further.
That's a different matter.
Oh.
And we're just putting a condition on a subdivision that's not before it. I don't mind having it, I'm just gonna question that. Is-
Let it stand up.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
notes number 24 and 25 have that information relative to the fire department. The applicant has agreed to put sprinkler systems in the 4 houses, and that it also says that if future lots are created, that the must put in a cistern. That's something he's agreed to.
Okay, I'll withdraw my comment. I'm delighted, but
I don't like those words, future lots. I mean, we've been given a plan that shows that you're using the property in a way where you have a central driveway that flares off to 2 lots. I don't know where more lots are coming from, unless you're gonna look for a driveway that's gonna be,
I believe those are the fire department's wording. We
Yeah.
didn't word that.
I think it's okay, it's just 'cause it doesn't really do anything. We can, future board can always modify a condition.
Well-
It's certainly a statement, indication of intent, and I take it at that.
remember that this applicant has a 60-foot right-of-way that he's serving 2 driveways on a 60-foot right-of-way. That is the standard width for a town road. So, just remember that.
That's as far as I think we can go.
We brought that up at the very first meeting we talked about this. Okay, what are we doing next? Fire department's all good, Joanne's been addressed in the
Yes,
comments.
correct.
And fire department was also talking about the driveways, or is that a different topic on page 12, middle of the page?
That was part of the fire department
department,
comments,
okay.
but they're fine with it.
Okay. So what are staff recommendations at this point?
So the staff recommendations were to review the staff comments.
Which we have already done for the
Here-
most part?
Hear the applicant's updated presentation.
Yep.
Then hear from abutters and members of the public.
Okay. So at this point, we're going to hear the applicant's updated presentation, so the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you. Again, this is Eric Mitchell. The revised plans that we've been talking about were submitted, and we've just reviewed the additional comments. Based on the comments and the recommendation that the application be approved with conditions, we read over the conditions, some of which have already been accomplished, but anything else that is there, we're willing to do. So we cleaned up a lot of things on the plan, so the list is a lot smaller than what it was last time. And so we believe that we're able to do any additions to the plan based on the conditions, and would ask the board to give consideration to conditional approval tonight. I have talked to Scott, and he can speak for himself, but I think that any of the items on DPW, what they're looking for is all things that we can do as a condition.
And we can handle them administratively, Scott?
I believe so.
Okay. And Joanne, do you have conditions that you're gonna need to handle administratively?
Yes,
And do you feel that you can handle them and there wouldn't be anything beyond administrative decisions?
correct.
Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to add at this time before I open the public hearing?
No.
Okay, so you can hang for a second. If someone wants to come up, I'll ask you to vacate the seats. So at this time, we will open the public hearing on map 9, lot 15, 16, and 18 for public comment. No one is stepping up, so I will close the public hearing. For discussion on outstanding items.
Can we go through some of these conditions, some of the wording?
Absolutely.
needs? I made a lot of comments of, and we've had this discussion before, a condition should state either a requirement or an action, not a should or it's recommended that, because that, that doesn't tell the applicant what they have to do or what we're requiring.
Can you start with the number that...
For example, number 17, the existing
Number
easement.
17 is one I wanted to jettison anyway.
Okay, so that's gone.
You're going to jettison, you're recommending to jettison 17
Yeah.
for the
I
reasoning?
want to make sure we're talking about, there's, 17 is different
Oh, wait,
depending
no,
on
I'm looking at
whether
my
it's
own list.
current
I'm
packet
sorry.
or new
17 in
packet.
the revised packet is DPW recommends providing infiltration.
No,
But that is one that it's a recommend, so.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I'm sorry, I was looking at this easement on my old list, I don't know if
Can
that's
you
gone.
read it, so maybe we can find it?
The existing recorded easement granting parcel 918, it should, it's no longer necessary and should be
Page
abandoned.
13, number 11.
Okay, so in our revised report, it's on page 13,
Okay,
Jim.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
That's all right.
So
I'll
what does
show
that mean? Are we requiring that it be, is it
Well-
should or must?
So the easement currently was granted for 918, and I believe now the easement is for 918-1 on 918, so it's basically moot, it's a moot easement, so I don't know kind of like.
Well, do we want it to be outstanding, or do we need,
So-
for the new plan to work, does that have to go away?
So maybe change that to a shall then?
Yeah, if that's a requirement, make it a shall.
Okay.
And where are we, number 11 on
Number
the...
11, yeah.
And where are you putting the word shall in?
Instead of should?
Line 2, end of line.
Should become shall.
I don't, I'm not commenting on the merits, I
Mhm.
couldn't follow the
Yeah.
easement, but if,
Are
I'll
you
try to be a little more
You sticking with the
concise.
revised plan, Jim? Maybe you can chase your comments over to the revised plan for us?
I'll track them.
yeah, well, hold on. Number 20 is, on the old one, is the existing driveway going to be used as a proposed driveway? If not, ensure that the proposed easement, that's a question, not a condition, so I don't know if it
So that
appears-
was originally a comment of mine that I was, so I don't know why it made it onto here, but I don't,
I
Is
don't
it-
think it's on it.
It's not on the new one.
I think I took that one off.
yeah.
Okay. Number 24 in the old one, DPW recommends providing infiltration.
Yep, so
That's
that's
number
currently
17 on
number
the new one.
17,
Okay,
yeah.
same question, is it a recommendation or a requirement?
So it wasn't initially intended to be a condition because I don't believe we can require them to do it. So it was, you might want to do this being this close to the,
Well, actually, we did on an application down on New Boston Road because we were talking about salt contamination of the wetlands. We required them to
Okay.
put in an infiltration trench on the edge of the driveway.
we can require? I guess I didn't know that. When I was talking to Eric about it, he said we typically recommend it.
You have to have a reason why you're gonna
Okay.
require it.
Yeah, I mean, this driveway, I mean, you can see it splits a wetland pretty much it goes right between
So-
a decent sized one.
Should
And
that be a
our-
requirement?
And our rationale on the prior application was that a paved driveway is probably gonna get sand and salt
Yeah.
on it, and
Yeah.
salt then goes directly into the wetlands.
So we
the-
can add that back in with the making it, let's see.
I mean, it shall, what it should say, shall provide infiltration to the approval, satisfaction of the town engineer.
Start with infiltration. Infiltration
DPW
trenches along proposed driveways shall be provided due to,
Proximity to the wetlands.
And to the,
So Joanne, Gail, do you have the revised language on that in your record yet? 'Cause I'll have Barbara repeat it to you, because she said it, stated it.
infiltration trenches along proposed driveways shall be provided due to wet proximity with wetlands and Terrible Pond, and it should be proposed driveways.
okay, go on to number 18, once you finish that, and tell me what that means.
So that was never intended to be approval condition either. It was the previous application plan was, the driveway was closer to the wetland on one
Right.
side than the other, so, and they actually centered it for this one.
So can that come out?
That one can come out, that's one of the ones that I crossed out.
Okay.
So if you want to back up to 17, this is going to be to the satisfaction of the DPW director, or DPW engineer, rather. Because locating the infiltration trenches is important to where they would begin and end as well. Otherwise, we're stating he has to put it in a non-defined area.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, there's a portion of the driveway as it takes the turn after the wetland, it starts going uphill.
Right, so
that's
you'll
the
have to
best place
work,
for it.
you'll have to work
Yeah.
with the applicant to
Yeah.
assign the area for the infiltration trenches.
Okay.
Okay.
And how long they'll be.
Yeah, how long you'll be, that's right.
That's a 1,000-foot driveway.
Yeah, I don't think it would need to be the whole driveway, but we'll take a look when, it'll be helpful to see that grading plan too of the driveway. to
That's where you can
figure-
include that as well on the grading plan.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay.
If you go down, I'm looking at the new list now, number 26, show all drainage, number 27, are those still outstanding?
27 is complete, 26 is still missing some existing drainage, there's that under drain on Terrell Hill.
And number 28, we didn't get the erosion control plan?
We got a driveway plan that has erosion control measures drawn on it, so we're all set with that
So
one.
that can come out.
Yeah,
28 is stricken.
yep.
Building permits are required, okay. Copies of PDS, okay. Yeah, that's standard procedure, decommissioning of wells, is
Okay.
I think
DES,
that, you added that note though, didn't you?
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
so 31's gone.
because that's required by DES.
Yeah, so that note, 31 can come off because
And
the
I-
note's on the plan.
And I
already.
question 32, that's a tax matter.
I didn't.
Why are we putting that up?
32, is that you, Joanne?
That's the assessing comments.
Okay.
But that's not our
That's for them to
Okay.
wrangle
And I
with
think
when
it's
property-
incorrect anyway. It says the builder is responsible, land owner under the tax statute is responsible.
So I don't think that should be in there
I don't
either.
think it is, I think it's just incorrect.
Well, that's for the assessing to worry about. No, we're not making statements to assessing rules. As far as I'm
Joanna, unless you can say some reason why it should be on, I don't.
No,
I-
that's fine that you take it off.
I think
So
it's-
14 and 15 can come off too. We didn't start back there, but those were two that have already been completed since the last time they were here.
Now, if we are gonna have the land use change tax paid at some point, maybe we put that in, but it's a tax matter, it's just not a planning matter.
All right, does that handle the additional outstanding items, Joanne?
Yes.
Does any board member have anything else to discuss about outstanding items?
Scott, would you tell me what the other two were that you said could be removed?
14 and 15.
14 and 15.
Page
Yes.
13.
Yep.
So can we just go through this so we're sure Gail has this? So as to the suggested conditions for approval, revised packet received tonight, starting on page 12, we're adopting them with changes to number 11,
Yes?
with should being shall. I'm letting Gail take a
Wait a
look.
minute, page, starting on
Here, I'll
page
spell
12.
for you, if you, Gail, so you won't
No,
have to
no, I
dig.
got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, starting on page 12, 11 become, line 2 should become shall.
Yeah.
14 is coming out. 15 is coming out. 17 is being revised
Worded.
to say infiltration trenches along proposed driveway shall be provided to the satisfaction of DPW due to proximity with wetlands and Terrell Pond.
Yeah.
18 is coming out. 27 is coming out. 28 is coming out. 31 is coming out. And 32 is coming out.
Got it.
And
And I
do,
hear David going, so I think I got him.
and do we need to do anything more? Number 3, technical comments listed under DPW. Is there any question about what those are?
So those would be any of the previous comments that were on sheets 9 and 10. So comments number 1 through 9 would kind of cover that, which some of these, I've already discussed all of these with Eric.
So do we need?
Some of them are duplicates.
Yeah, especially the approval conditions listed down there are duplicated.
Come on, folks, this is dragging on too long. Let's
Well,
move this
well, I
along.
just want to make sure we don't leave out a condition of approval.
I understand, but
We've made that mistake.
let's be concise.
I would say that I understand it to be the conditions as set forth. However, there were 7 and 9 are gonna be worked out, right?
There are several comments in here that DPW and the applicant are gonna work out administratively. And he has stated on the record that he can handle 7, 8, and 9
Okay.
on page 10,
Yes.
as well as 5 on page 9.
And 3. There's some plan.
Right, the grading of the
Yes.
driveway.
There's a number of things that aren't done yet.
But he said he will be able to handle them administratively. He has stated that for the record.
Okay.
Any other discussion from board members?
Make a motion that we approve with the conditions as amended and incorporating the DPW comments on pages, whatever they are in the report, subject to the approval of the town engineer. Scott, do we refer to the town engineer or the Department of Public Works as the approving?
I know it's sort of,
I
I'm
know-
fine with either. I don't.
I mean, you're the engineer, you're not the.
It all goes through me at this point now. So
Town engineer at the Public Works Department.
yeah.
How do you want to be referred to?
So Jim has made a motion to approve with conditions. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Any discussion on Jim's motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
How many we got?
I
Jim?
don't know.
Jim and David said aye,
Mm.
and you said aye.
Yep.
So that's 3. All those opposed? I'm opposed.
Me,
2 opposed, so the motion passes.
And I think we have to state the reasons and.
What do you have to
Right.
state the reason for? The reason, the motion passing?
Because the statute requires it now.
no,
Well,
no,
we
no,
don't-
no,
I understand that, but Joanne was gonna provide us with a list that was going to,
that
we
what?
could plug them in.
Well, but we need that before we have a final
findings,
approval.
yeah.
We can't approve without having that.
No, I don't know what to say.
Well, no,
Findings.
we can't do that. This is the action we take, and if we don't have the findings, then we're not
Somebody
approving.
think of some findings real quick.
Well, or we defer the final vote till we have those, because it's part of the action we take. is the
So are we
adoption.
requesting that staff provide us with findings in the future so we have something on our reports to utilize?
Well, that would be,
she has, we have had them a few times from staff in regards to findings.
So Joanne, do you have findings that are applicable to this project?
Well, I mean, I think the basic finding would be that the applicant has met all of the requirements pertaining to the zoning ordinance and the development regulations, with the exception of the waivers that were were granted by the planning board.
Subject to conditions that require administrative approval. Okay, with that finding, renew the motion.
Do we have to vote on it again?
I move that we incorporate those findings into the previously approved motion.
Okay, the motion's been made to incorporate findings into the previously approved motion. Made by Jim, seconded by?
Dave?
All those in favor of adding the findings to the approval that we voted on already, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm opposed. 4-1. You are set, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Joanne, what's our next applicant? New business?
The next applicant is Hawks Motorsport,
Okay.
under new business. This is map 5, lot 49. The applicant is proposing to build a 4,800 square foot commercial building with on-site associated improvements for a proposed automotive/trailer dealership business. Property owners are Munich Holdings LLC. The address is 186 Mast Road. The property is zoned commercial industrial flex zone. And this application was continued from the September 8th meeting. So the application, they're basically looking to do a phased plan, 2 phases. The first one would be for the storage of the trailers, and the second would be for the building itself. So they have included 2 sheets with the phasing included on there. And they're asking for some waivers that really pertain to what would be required. And some of it has to do with the phasing. I wasn't sure when the application said automotive/trailer. I wasn't quite positive if they were looking to sell vehicles on the site as well, or just store the vehicles and sell the trailers, or if they were looking to also include automobiles on that site. So I'm not really sure about that.
Well, we'll get an answer.
The application is complete, but there is an issue with, one of the abutters is here, and he will talk during the public comment, but it has to do with a road called Buzzell Road that travels through the property that the abutter has a direct interest in as part of his deed. The application also has placed their detention or retention, some sort of the drainage structure itself, on the town's, basically on the town's right-of-way for the rail trail. And they did go to the Board of Selectmen about this issue recently,
Which issue?
having this on town property, having
Okay.
the drainage located on town property. And the the select board, the motion was made to approve the right-of-way, providing the planning board approves the project. And that was a unanimous vote.
Is the selectman's rep not here tonight because I might have said something to him about that motion?
He's not here.
Essentially, they meant that they'd be willing to grant the easement if it was identified as so by the plan.
Right. That's what this meant. It's kind of, the motion is worded a little funky, but that's what they meant by that. So Jason Hill is here tonight, and he needs some discussion with you to find out whether or not this board will allow that to happen. However, Scott and I are not in favor of it, having people put their drainage system on town land. And the other problem is this abutter who's inquiring about Buzzell Road and his interest in the road. The drainage structure is also placed on that road. So that's an issue that he can certainly address with you, but I just wanted to bring that up so you know ahead of time.
So the application is complete, but there are two outstanding sort of issues
Right.
before you even get into the
Yeah.
details of the plan.
Yeah. And this has also been revised, so don't look in your original packet for this.
Don't look at the one that was mailed to us, but look at
The one that-
16 through 24 distributed tonight, 16
16
to
through
24.
24.
You can blame that one on me.
Yeah, but the changes on that, just so you know, look pretty, I went through it to see. It looks like the changes are,
Four comments were crossed out.
4 comments
Yeah.
are crossed out, that's it.
Eight, nine,
Page
10, and
19
11.
to 20,
It has to do with Scott's comments.
Yeah.
8 to 11 are crossed out, so it's not a big switch around. It's,
Joanne, was this accepted as complete and ready to be
no, we need to do that and
No.
I move
I
it.
should also just say, the abutter has hired a company called TND Engineering, and you should have
Right, we have.
this in front of you, and that's what he'll be discussing. So,
That's in tonight's pile?
yes, it's not connected to anything, it's a separate paper.
Looks like this.
It's swung away from me, okay. I'll
You
look
got
for No, but I'll find it.
So I
Give it
think,
back to me after.
Okay, I'll find
How
it.
many
That's it.
waivers are they asking for?
I think
Wait a
it's
minute, I've got two.
three.
Two, three.
Never mind. Oh, here, I got it. I found that. Give me a second back.
We also included staff comments, but I think for the purpose of tonight's meeting, they really need an answer on the drainage structure location.
So Barbara, would you like
Well,
to
I
make?
mean, I guess I moved, we can't have the discussion unless the plan's in front of us, so I move that the plan is complete and has no regional impact.
Second.
It's subject to the granting of waivers.
For discussion purposes only?
Right.
Okay, there's been a motion to find the application complete, ready to review, no regional impact, and waivers for discussion purposes only. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. So the next recommendation is to review the staff comments. Joanne, could you tell us about staff comments?
Did you want to review the staff comments? or-
What's on your list of things to do right here?
Oh, okay.
Review staff comments.
Okay, so the staff comments are, let's see,
Page 17.
okay. The parking requirements have been met, they need 17 spaces. The architectural renderings or the floor plans have not yet been included. The board may want to require bollards along the driveway at the intersection with the rail trail, as you've done in the past. Since sewer and water will not be installed until phase 2, I was wondering if there would be like porta potties on the site or just a little more information about what would be out there for phase 1. The plan states proposed, I just said this before, about proposed trailer dealership, but the application says automotive/trailer dealership. So I'm wondering if automotive vehicles would be sold. And I was unable to locate the location of the business sign. I talked to Jason about that yesterday, and they haven't come up with a location yet, but they may want to place it in the right-of-way of the rail trail, which the car wash did, but they had to go to the selectmen for approval for that.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Joanne on staff comments?
And then Scott had comments.
Yeah, I think we'll get to them after we do the initial decision on the drainage and detention pond.
Okay, so that's comment number 13, we're gonna talk about that one, when you wanna get to that.
Okay. Well, Joanne wants to work this out now, because
Okay.
if the board is not gonna be conceding
agree,
to that, then the application is not going anywhere.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of changes, so.
Right. So let's invite the applicants up to the table, please, and identify themselves for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Jason Hill with TF Moran. I'm here with Austin Hawks, who's the representative of Munich Holdings LLC, the applicant for the project. I think you've summarized everything, Joanne. I agree with, other than I believe that I included architectural elevations in the packages that were submitted on September 27th. So I wasn't sure if the board did not end up with elevations, which should have been attached to the plans as the last 3 to 4 sheets.
I think they were in mine.
All right,
Just like to make that for the record.
thank you.
I think everyone in here is familiar with the site location and the context from last month's meeting. I'm going to skip that unless anyone is unfamiliar with the project location. And Joanne summarized where we've been so far, including meeting with the Conservation Commission in the spring, who supported the project and the proposed layout and improvements. Zoning board for the variance for the proposed access or frontage, which this parcel does not have, subject to this rail trail or a right-of-way. The use, as Joanne had mentioned, we're not proposing an automotive use. I just took that out of the zoning ordinance in terms of for the parking and the classification of the project. That's identified as a use. So I took it out of your zoning ordinance. That's why it was referred to as automotive/trailer. But indeed, we're only proposing trailer use. And there's 2 phases. The first phase is just going to be to create a small clearing with gravel and pave the driveway entry sequence, construct the drainage pond, and this is going to include only overflow storage for his existing business. There will be no showing of the inventory to customers or sale of equipment on this site under the initial phase. And the second phase, or full build, just consists of this 4,800-foot building with some garage bays, and then the creation of the parking field, and then the creation of the storage area here in gravel on the remaining portion, as well as the landscaping. The waivers are for, and they've been submitted in your package, one for wetlands and topographic survey over the parcel, which is roughly 27 acres. We've surveyed the wetlands and topo within the development area, such that we know that we're within any jurisdictional setbacks of any, we've identified all of those jurisdictional resources and topographic resources that are required for construction, but we're seeking just a relief from the overall undeveloped back parcel for topographic and wetland survey. And then finally for the parking area, which I actually I submitted a waiver for parking, let me see here, just so I clarify things properly for the record. This landscaping waiver, which is for section
Oh,
F
Appendix
2.3.
interior landscaping requirements, phase 1 only. Yeah, so it's really a question of whether or not that applies to the project. It's a requirement for trees to be and shrubs to be put in relative to the parking area, or in this case, I guess you'd have a display area. But for phase 1, it's a small footprint, and so all of the trees that would be required to be put in the future, so the tree and shrub plantings that are required for this project are like outside of that footprint area, so to plant them, obviously in the first phase, it's in the grass, and they'd be being worked around for phase 2. And so it's damaged, and it's also, not applicable, I believe, to like a storage yard to have interior plantings, because it's not a parking lot. So that waiver was submitted to cover that condition if in fact it does apply to the project.
For phase 1 of the
For
project.
phase 1. We are proposing a lot of plantings for phase 1, as you'll see in the right-of-way along the rail trail area, and those are shown on the site plans for phase 1 that show all of these proposed street tree plantings. The shrubbery along the rail trail will all be done and put in, completed in phase 1. So that comes to the issue of the rail trail and the proposed improvements, which we've worked for a long time and met with the rail trail group in the spring to kind of outline what we were looking to do. It was identified that accommodations could be made by our development to utilize that area. There was some specific site constraints that also will enable us to benefit from the better soil conditions and the fact that as you go to the south, you have ledge outcroppings such that to build this program, the use of this sandy area adjacent to the road and the rail trail minimizes our footprint for digging, for excavating. It's also not identified by the rail trail group as to be an area of their potential use. It also, this general drainage design for the project will intercept a lot of the runoff coming off the hillside and detain and infiltrate that water into this new BMP, which will improve the drainage conditions in this vicinity going forward from where there's puddling and such that's undefined drainage patterns in that right of way. We're also going to be planting enhanced shrubbery streetscapes, which will dress up and provide a positive visual component, which will benefit the town. And we've also agreed to provide, Austin has agreed to provide some of the labor for the improvements to the rail trail, so such that when this section is improved in the future, near future, we're providing that benefit to the town. But most importantly, and I think so we've got the rail trail group who has, the select board, who have kind of green lighted us today. We've gone forward over the several months, before I actually even came to the board, with no negative feedback. And then last month, I see in the staff report that there's some staff against it, which unfortunately I would have approached this differently maybe if I would have had earlier feedback, which I know is not necessarily required of the town, but it would have been, if they may have had those feelings initially, then we may have taken a different approach, maybe wouldn't have, because of the, getting back to the basis, and I'm going to stop with this shortly, but the soils as you go south on this property, you change your soil mass, the general soil structural qualities and the soil complex changes. We have the good sands down near the rail trail. As you head to the south, you develop to a shallow restrictive layers, ledge conditions, water table. So those features are unique to this property and other properties, potentially other properties in this general vicinity, that allow us to, if we were to utilize this space, which is this space here within a portion of the existing rail trail, it allows us to keep our our overall site work and excavation minimized, where we're not working in the ledge conditions and disturbing more of the natural woodlands to the south. And that's a unique aspect of this property, which is different from other properties, I believe. Finally, so we're basically looking to secure a permanent drainage easement to construct this, essentially it's an infiltration pond in a portion of the rail trail right-of-way. And we would be maintained by the applicant or his heirs and assigns going forward. And I think that it will it'll benefit both the public or the town in terms of the drainage improvements as well as Austin by allowing him to minimize his site costs. Like I said, the terrain starts to slope as you go back into the hillside. So the further the site gets pushed back from the road, and it's already very far from the road because you have a 60-foot right-of-way minimum from the rail trail, plus the road right-of-way is pretty wide. So we're already back further than we'd like to be for the display of this equipment, but more importantly for site balancing purposes, and this is a plane of earth that has to slope generally flat within the development footprint. So as you go to the south, it creates more of a cut situation and it generates an unnecessary cut excavation and cost that would be absorbed by the client. So I think that's a hardship to him that would be implied. Anyways, that's the main thing I'd like to resolve and have some feedback and discussion on, because it would obviously involve significant redesign if I was to have to, if we were not able to make a deal with the town for this easement. And then that kind of, some of Scott's comments in his letter, which I did not address, are directly related to the detention pond condition. So I did not invest any effort in, going forward. I am meeting with Scott next week to look at, there was some drainage, some general drainage in the intersection of the proposed driveway and how we can clean that up and potentially make improvements to the proposed new intersection. I'd also like to say that this driveway location has been, although it's not approved by the DOT, it's recognized as the most appropriate and feasible location for the new access point, and that's due to the fact that it has the best sight lines along this section of road. Therefore, that is a fixed location as part of the DOT process for this project. I understand that a letter has been submitted, which I haven't seen, but we were aware of an abutter claiming to have potential rights of access to the parcel, which has, something has been submitted on that. So in terms of what I'd have to say about that, without seeing the letter, these are civil matters, private matters between property owners. There's no record of any. Our surveyor has done, who's not here tonight, has done research on the, has done research to date that goes back a ways. We know that there's no record of an actual easement plan that has been recorded or a deed that refers to a specific easement that has been recorded. We are amenable to working with the abutter, and we look to hopefully resolve the matter with the abutter, but this is a private matter between residents and not the planning board purview, in my opinion. And and to summarize, I've just said that the abutter has unfounded claim to the property rights, and this is a civil matter.
Okay.
I
All right,
appreciate the time.
You got anything else, Jason, that's new?
No, other than just the architecturals, which we can get to at
Okay.
leisure.
Yep, we'll get to that.
Yep.
So we're gonna limit the discussion right now to this request for a detention pond easement. Board members?
I guess I'd like to hear Scott first. You can
We'll get
educate us
the-
on-
The engineer's report?
So when I look at it, I see if we give access to town property for stormwater detention, or, I mean, I guess some drainage facility can be put on town properties in some cases, but where this is a whole detention facility, it's basically, I don't know the size of it, but it's a good size. I mean, it takes up a big piece of land, and it's basically taxpayer-owned property, kind of. And this is I understand the issues with the site and everything, but it's a 27-acre lot, and this is a small piece of that. So why does this have to be on town property? And then if we do allow it, it sets a precedent. We have an empty parcel next door between Mr. Hawk's property and the car wash,
Can I stop you for a second, Scott?
Yep,
Did the car wash seek an easement for their detention pond on the town property?
they did not.
Okay.
Their detention pond, Mr. Chair, is on the private side of the boundary line.
He just said they didn't ask for one, so that
Well, they
infers
didn't
that.
ask for one, but it is on the private side of the boundary line.
There is another few undeveloped parcels as you go further into town that may start to, ask to use town property for their stormwater as well, so.
We have another one on the agenda for this evening.
Okay.
So, and then the other thing is, some of the grading is actually within the sewer easement. So then I have concerns that if you have to ever dig down to the sewer, that maybe you are weakening or changing the capacity of the pond, and if while you're digging, there's ever a storm incident, then, there could be some issue with runoff and
Okay.
just,
And I can, when you're done, Scott, I did prepare a brief exhibit to show, to address that specific comment.
okay.
When, if,
If we get to there, we'll let you present that. Other board members?
Does Joanne have recommendation on?
Well, Joanne's already made a recommendation. You
Well-
want to say it for the record, Joanne?
About the
Detention
The
pond.
detention pond itself, no, I agree with Scott before even talking to him about it. I don't think the town should set a precedent to allow drainage structures, especially large ones, or even any, really in general, on town property. And I think in addition to the drainage structure being on town property, it's also on a right-of-way that it seems that there's a private interest in that right-of-way.
That's a different.
It's another
yeah.
subject.
I'll, Mr. Chair, the comments that I made at the select board regarding the presence of the drainage, of the detention pond, the fact is, if it's having a slope going down into the detention pond, since it's outside of the 10-foot path and outside of the 3-foot shoulder, having that embankment go down is not an unusual situation for our trail, since, over half of
Does
it is...
does it go down? Doesn't it go up from the rail trail?
it goes up like a foot
Yeah.
or less.
So
I have a
it's-
cross-section, actually, I can, right here.
But I'm just wanted to.
Is that the freeboard height?
I want you guys to have the right data.
Yeah, I don't
to
believe,
show
and
this.
there's a comment, I don't think the
Yeah, I
height is correct here.
Mike.
But-
Sorry. This is a 10 scale blown up, so here's your rail trail here,
Yeah.
this 10-foot strip, 3-foot shoulder, 3-foot grass beyond the shoulder, and there's where this berm starts, which is a
And that-
3-inch to 5-inch elevation rise, and then it goes down a few feet to the bottom.
It's the same situation. Having an embankment outside of the shoulder area does
Yeah.
not impede the intended use of the 10-foot path. And that's why the Friends of the Rail Trail, as an advisor to the Park Department on the trail's construction, we were not concerned about this, the earthwork for the detention pond. It doesn't impede the passage of the...
So the detention pond in
But
its
that's-
current design doesn't
I
have the
realize
1
the
foot
town
of
engineer
freeboard,
has
so.
other concerns about why that detention basin is there.
And then Scott, just your other comment, which I know you have not seen, in anticipation of this, I plotted the existing sewer line, the trunk line
Okay,
here.
so that's the
centered on
cutback.
road. That's a 1.5 to 1 cut slope. If you were to
Okay.
open cut it, it shows that the cut can be made without even impacting the berm itself, the start of the berm. And so in terms of your concern with
Okay.
construction, I think it's,
Yeah,
because of the width of the easement being
Mhm.
a pretty wide easement, being 15 feet, 25 feet is the width of the sewer easement. Just to usually
yeah, centered on the
Center on the pipe.
pipe, yeah.
That would be an open cut condition that's showing that that would not interfere with the operation of that pond, just so you
Yeah.
know, you have not seen that.
Have you discussed any of this with the sewer commission?
Met with the sewer commission,
Okay,
they're,
just curious.
and presented the same plan that we're talking about today. They had no concerns other than They wanted us to try to tie into an existing stub.
Who said you have no concern?
The sewer commission, when I met with you,
Yeah.
we met.
We talked about your stub, we didn't talk about a detention pond.
Oh, correct.
Yeah, well, make sure, let's just determine the
Okay.
conversation here. You said the sewer commission didn't have any concerns
I met with
with the stub.
With the development
That's fine,
and
you
the-
can
and the
continue with
proposed-
that line,
flow and the capacity at the plant.
yes.
We did not review this cross-section, and we actually didn't get into, I don't believe, any detail relative to the bond
Okay,
condition or the easement. At that point, we hadn't, that was actually in the spring, Tim, as well.
Yep, I
We actually
remember.
hadn't gotten this far with everything, so you're correct.
Yep, thank you.
We're happy to go back to the sewer commission if you would like.
Well, I
More
think,
than happy.
depending upon where this ends up, we
Sure.
can talk about that after. So, my question for you is, I have two questions. Why did you not do testing along the sideline of this property adjacent to the wetlands to the north side for your detention area? I understand soil conditions can change within the site, but did you do actual test pits to prove that there's no sandy soil to the north side? Yeah, right where you're pointing there.
That area is higher than the road, and it's also within the wetland buffer that does not apply to the project. So those two conditions I ruled out were not feasible, because you'd be creating a bigger hole to get to the same, you have to drain everything to the low point, which is the rail trail. We have to treat that water. So it's counterintuitive to go uphill, creating a bigger cut, and also in and of itself being in a wetland buffer area.
Okay.
So those reasons, I ruled that out.
Okay?
And also, just generally speaking, we did do test pits along the corridor and then back into the site.
Mhm.
And we found that the water, the restrictive layer is higher in the ground as you go south into the, which is expected because you're getting into a hillside condition. So we have the cleanest sands right in this area here.
Okay. Any other members of the board?
I have a question. What is the town's property interest? It's not, it's a fee interest, it's an easement? What does the town hold?
Lease, right?
Well, it was a land lease. I think David could speak to this better than I could.
Or what's the current, status of the town's
Well, there's some
property interest?
dispute.
Land lease, I believe I've seen a report from a town attorney that the wording of land lease as it was interpreted prior to the Civil War in actual meant a perpetual ownership.
That's my understanding. The reason I ask is an easement can be for a limited purpose, but if you have essentially a fee interest, you have exclusive use and control. So if there's for just an easement for a rail trail, you could have another use on the property in theory. But if the town's interest is greater than that, then it's as if it's going on town property.
That's my
It is.
understanding.
Okay. And I think that's the position we've taken on other developments along that stretch, which doesn't change what Jason's asked for. I just want to define what
And just for
the
record,
town's
we've
interest is.
submitted our own opinion from our surveyor that get to the heart of that this was in fact a lease associated with a railroad, and such that when that lease, that use was abandoned, that interest was also diverted back to the landowner of record, which is
Yeah.
contrary to, your town.
Yeah, I know, they're different.
So we were trying to kind of work with the town with both angles, where we're trying to work and keep my client's rights to use some of it intact, while also respecting the rights of the town in this particular unique
Yeah.
case.
Yeah, we're not going to resolve that here. I just trying to define what
Thank you,
the
sorry, I
questions
didn't
are.
want to get too.
Anybody else? Well, I, for one, am, and I'll try to say this as politely as I can, because I'm not really known for politeness sometimes. I'm a little perturbed that this applicant went to the Rail Trail Committee before they even came here with this drainage plan, and hashed out all the details, including planting trees and improving the trail bed and a lot of other things, prior to even coming before this board. Now,
But-
that could be expeditious. I could view that as being expeditious. But I'm just concerned that, you know, they come in with all, these deals are all made, and here we just want you to rubber stamp them for us. And I'm a little bit annoyed that we didn't do this in a reverse order.
But to be fair to the applicant, Tim, when he was in last time, he did alert us.
He told us that
It's a
he had
decision.
already contacted the rail trail at the last meeting that he had been, and they had already worked out an arrangement to put the drainage on the rail trail easement. So that implies to me that they had talked to them prior to the
I
first
guess I'm
meeting.
not as offended by that, but okay.
I just, I'm just,
I view it as, they've come up with a plan to see if we can accept it, and to do that, you need input from other parties, so.
Mr. Chair, ultimately, the discussion was the improvements that the applicant were discussing would not impede the alignment of the trail. And if they were to get proper easements for detention basins and locations of driveways, that there was no impact on the rail trail, and that was the conclusion of the study. It wasn't that we approved, or in the discussion with the Friends of the Rail Trail, because in our capacity to advise the Park Department, it wasn't approving the location of the detention basin. It was just that it would not impact the rail trail, and that they were still to seek proper permission from the planning board and the select board.
okay.
And I didn't mean to misstep the board in this case. I figured, maybe incorrectly, maybe not, that the board would ultimately look to the rail trail as for a recommendation and kind of follow that path versus having a differing opinion, perhaps. So that's kind of why I didn't conceptually approach you at that point.
Thank you. Barbara?
It was not intentional.
I have missed one or two meetings. When has this been before the board before? When it said it was discussed?
It was continued
It was a very
from,
brief discussion, wasn't it?
Probably only
Was
like
it
5
an
minutes.
application or a conceptual?
It was an application.
All right, so I would say, number one, that this issue would seem to me to be a great example of where a conceptual should come before the planning board before the effort is made to do a full plan. This site is a difficult site, I am aware of that, and I appreciate the engineering that has been done to do this design, and I think the display of the trailers is appropriate at this site. I mean, I think everything about it is appropriate, except for where this detention pond is. I don't really care about the rail trail consideration. That's not what's before me. The question before me, from what I'm looking at it, is there a basis for me to give away a special interest that is owned by the taxpayer to a commercial developer for them to do a site plan? And for me, the answer is no. I can't come up with a rationale that justifies using this site for this detention pond layout in this particular area. And it's not insubstantial. I mean, this is a fairly large detention area. And getting to the rail trail, I held a shovel on the rail trail commencement of that construction. So this has nothing to do with the rail trail and David's comments as to the fact that other parts of the rail trail have embankments and slopes from the side and don't impede its use. As a matter of fact, there are portions that have a significantly bigger sloping from the rail trail itself. I am very disappointed that the Board of Selectmen took the approach that they did for this. I again, I think this comes to cart before the horse and what's going on, but they clearly have a different view of it. But I have a really hard time. I haven't heard anything to justify this detention pond, and I appreciate that from a design standpoint, it might make a lot of sense. So that's my comment, keeping it to the detention pond.
And there was one last thing that you stated, Jason, is that it's a cost savings for the site for development. We generally don't consider cost savings as reasons for, in this case, giving an easement into the, approving an easement into the town land for the cost reduction to your client for site work. So we've never considered cost a defining factor in decision making. It's got to do with rules and regulations. All right. Members, what are we doing with this?
Well, you can take a,
Oh, we're not done. Do we, Joanne, do we open the public hearing and allow the abutter who has this assertion they would like to make public
I think
before
you
we
need
move to any
because
decision-making
It was
process?
advertised as a public
I
hearing.
think that would be a good idea.
but-
So, Jim?
I'm sorry, but you began this discussion that we were going to address the detention pond issue. I'm not sure the abutters' comments, I understand them, address that issue, and that's, as far as I see it, that is a threshold issue for this design. So we can hear the abutters' comments, but I don't think it's on the detention pond, it's on a,
Well, I just want to
Reason.
be sure that the abutters' comments and the assertions do not intersect with the detention pond.
okay, that's fair.
That's what I wanted to be
But-
sure,
but,
that they weren't conflicting interests.
Okay, are we going to limit the discussion to the
Yes.
detention pond at this point?
And the assertion by the abutter that they have a use to property, which is what I believe Joanne stated.
Which is maybe related but really separate, because.
As long as it doesn't intersect it, then we would hold off on it.
But that's the issue, it does intersect.
Okay, so
Okay.
that's why we're getting there.
Okay.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you guys to take a chair in the gallery for a moment. And I am going to open the public hearing and ask anyone who would like to speak at this hearing to step forward and identify themselves for the record, please.
It's freezing.
It was too hot before. That's dying.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Rick Chalman. I'm a line surveyor, professional engineer, owner of TND Engineering, and you have a letter that I prepared before you. I understand you'd like comments limited to just the detention area at this stage.
I would appreciate that because if things go forward and it's an approval, then we'll bring it back, but if it is a denial, then it'll be a moot point for you to give us a long presentation.
Well, try to be respectful of everybody's time.
Thank you.
The diagram that I put in the letter,
That's a blow up of what we have on this thing.
Yes, sir.
with respect to my clients, the Roberts, two Roberts Revocable Trusts, we take the position, and it's a very strong position, that is also supported by some of the statements by Moran's office as well, that there is in fact a right-of-way across the former Buzzell Road. The issue, limiting it just to the drainage detention area that you're seeing, one issue that I'd like to point out, and the chairman pointed out, it's really located there for cost reasons. It's also a consumptive easement. You know, once that was built there, it would preclude passage from my clients over this area. It also preclude the use by the town for other uses such as expansion of the rail trail, having a pull-out area, a little rest area, something like that that you may want to do in the future. You couldn't do that if you granted this permit.
But more importantly, from my client's perspective, putting that there does preclude passage and travel, which has been the case in this location for a great many years. The road was discontinued in 1932. It's Article 13 on the warrant at that time. But there was a recent case, we have attorneys on the board, you can look it up. Just last year, the Supreme Court addressed the fact that historic discontinuances that predated the current statute, which went into effect from like 1940s forward, the recent Supreme Court case said the older discontinuances should also continue to provide access rights to abutters. The case is very long. I'm not going to get into all those details. There are other cases that support this as well. But as important, that reservation for the rights of access is contained in the Munich deeds and all their predecessor deeds. You know, this is not something, I'm not making something out of nothing here. This is a real issue, and it affects this design. So the fact that the town has certain rights, and I think the point this gentleman made about what are those town rights, do you even have the right to grant a permanent easement on this property, I don't know. But I do know that by so doing, you would interfere with my client's rights to pass over it, and any town future desires that you may not even think of tonight, because it would be a consumptive use of that area. I can talk about the rest of it if you'd like, but...
I'd like to stick to the detention pond and the impact on the detention pond.
Okay. Do you have any questions about that?
So the diagrams you provided us with in your letter show a blue line and two red areas. Could you describe them to the board?
Yes. The area up near Mass Road is the area of the detention pond, the red. The blue is the original Buzzell Road. And the Buzzell Road layout is shown on all of the plans before you. They've dashed it on there, and they said that private rights may exist. Private rights do exist in that area for passage. It is a right-of-way. So the lower area, the thinner red line across the bottom, I'll just say, answer your question, it's because of the berm area there, so there's proposed grading that would also have an impact. That doesn't relate to the drainage we're talking about.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Chanel?
Shellman.
Shellman, excuse me.
For efficiency, Tim, if he can summarize his other points now quickly, we may not have to have him come back. I guess
I think we'll allow that. The word quickly was kicked in there.
I heard that word.
So if you could summarize, please.
Well, you have the letter, so I'm certainly not going to read the entire letter. I did generally summarize. The right-of-way is mentioned and reserved in the deeds in the Munich chain. It's in the current deed, it's in all the predecessor deeds, going back to 1932 when the road was discontinued. It doesn't predate 1932 because there was a road there. The road shows up on plans long after 1932. It shows on a 1982 plan of land for the two parcels on either side of Buzzell Road that Moran's office also prepared. It's shown on the town GIS map. It's a road, it's been a road. It's not a public road, I'm not saying that, but there are private rights to that road for the abutters to the original Buzzell Road, spelled different ways. So there are the reservations in the deeds. There's also significant case law, some of it very recent, some of it not as recent, that clearly say this discontinued town road does still remain a right-of-way or limited for private rights, which it's not just may, those private rights not just may exist, they do exist. Is that quick enough?
That's well done. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for this gentleman or Mr. Roberts? Roberts?
Question. Just for clarification, on the inset with the blue and red highlight on it, that blue is not to scale, is it?
Yes,
Is it?
yes.
You can see it on the plan on page C42.
No, well, and I'm looking at a sheet. It just seems much bigger to scale than it does on the maps that I'm looking at here.
Well, here's a smaller scale map with the same blue. I literally traced the lines shown on the Moran plan. I didn't
Okay.
make it bigger or anything.
think it looks bigger because, it's kind of a blow up of just a portion of a lot.
Oh, maybe, okay.
It's not showing to the boundaries.
It's not exaggerated.
Thank you.
Who's that? Oh, Mr. Roberts, you didn't state your name for the record, sir.
William Roberts, 23 Roberts Road.
Thank you.
Thanks.
May I ask a question?
Please, just speak right up.
Speak to the use of the easement. Has there been any recent use? Which may or may not be relevant, I understand, it's just a factual matter.
Recently, it's only been used for foot travel by members of our family and many members of the public without easement rights. In the past, it was used to access a hotel that was on the Scribner property, Buzzell property. Scribner acquired it from Buzzell. There's a family relationship between those two families. And it finally came to the Roberts in 1891 after the hotel, which was called Scribner's Mountain House, burned down. I don't believe we've taken timber, logs out to Mast Road, but it would have been a convenient thing to do for property that was on that side of the hill close to Mast Road. But in my memory, we haven't used it for that.
Thank you.
If I can add to that, the topography generally from Addison Road back to Mast Road, there's a significant high ground in the village. I'm sure you're all aware that's where the hotel was, near the top of that. And historically, before the Roberts family consolidated all of their land, the different parcels on the Mast Road side of the mountain used this for access, and whereas the other side of the mountain went more towards Addison.
Thank you.
Any more questions from board members?
Brevity is a virtue, I commend you.
Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? Because you were gonna...
I think this is an issue that, and I think it's also in Peter Laughlin's book, for those of you who refer to it, it's not dissimilar from proposing a building under a power line easement. You know, that could be construed as something between the power company and the landowner, but it's really something that should be considered. So I think that this application fails for a number of reasons.
Okay, sir, thank you.
May I add one thing, Mr.
Please,
Chairman, to
Mr.
that? The development regulations that the planning board has adopted require that existing, and I'll just read the relevant part, existing man-made features as well as proposed be shown on the site plan that's for which approval is sought, including but not limited to existing rights-of-way, roads, and so forth. The applicant's done that, and they've said that private rights-of-way may exist over this road in the notes. They've said that Moran has said that for on many plans for the what's now the Nunick property over the last few decades, and I think that the recognition, although I understand Mr. Hill's point that this is a, quote, civil matter, but it's also a matter that's relevant, I think, to improvements to be put on a property that the planning board, under its regulations, ought to take into account existing rights-of-way. So among other things, landowners don't necessarily, abutting landowners don't necessarily have to go to court to try to stop something that has been approved despite the existence of private rights.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
One very quick point on the parking. Some of the proposed parking is located within this right-of-way area, and obviously parked vehicles would interfere with the adequate use of the right away, so that could be an issue.
Okay. You good?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Anybody else wish to speak at the public hearing? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing for now. Board members.
Let's start backwards on the easement rights. We've often taken the position that we're not deciding property rights except when it, I think we've added the condition, has a material effect on the project. That's different from something we experienced recently where there's a discussion on a boundary that didn't affect the underlying project, which way it was decided. This is different, so I know I'm just a resident of Goffstown who volunteers his time as a citizen, but I do have some knowledge. There is an issue here about rights to a discontinued road that I'm not sure have been adequately addressed. On the drainage issue, I share, I guess, Barbara's concern with, and that is, part goes to my earlier question on the nature of the town's interest, but to the extent the town has, and it's my understanding, really the rights of a fee owner through the lease, and railroad leases were mysterious at best. It's not a, we shouldn't be granting the use of that absent some compelling circumstances, which I don't see present here. I would be curious as to the reasoning of the Board of Selectmen and the nature of their decision, or their vote. That's not a final decision because that takes some formality of action which they haven't done. So I don't feel we're compelled to accept that at this point. But I'm unwilling to accept the applicant's position on the use of the town's right-of-way, or railroad trail, or whatever we call it.
Okay. Anything else from board members? So I'm going to ask members of the board here, would it be appropriate to ask Mr. Hill and his applicant to come up for one last speak, or should we act on our staff recommendation?
I think the act, typically when we've had these threshold decisions that where there is an alternate path forward for the applicant, we've offered the applicant the option of asking for continuance to let them come back, either with further argument to convince us or to revise the plan, and I think that would
As
be
opposed to voting on the matter?
Correct. I don't think that's required now because it's really, this is the first real hearing we've had on this, and it's too early for us to act.
Okay.
But
Would that also include the applicant having time to discuss the civil matter between?
it gives the it gives the applicant time to
on
resolve.
this concept of an easement.
Correct. Gives the applicant time to address issues that have come up at this meeting. Certainly, but we, but we haven't taken. We've just heard comments from 2 board members or 3. I don't know what there's no board decision yet on these
No,
issues.
we just all made our particular comments on how
Some of us has. Some
Gail
have been
has
quiet.
remained quiet on it, so that's her right at this point. So, Mr. Hill, why don't you and Mr. Hawks come on back up, please? I think it's obvious you've heard the testimony from board members as well as an abutter. And as Jim has stated, at this time, I think we would be appropriate to ask you to either come back with a revised plan or further arguments to support your desire to proceed as you've drawn that plan. And we would ask you for a date that would you feel happy coming back for a continuance to proceed. We have to have them waive the 65-day clock as well, Joanne?
Yes.
We'll right into it. Did we just accept this today?
No, we accepted this at a prior meeting, if that didn't, no?
No.
No, tonight?
Yeah, so
Today.
65 days from today, so.
So 65 days from today.
Given the, what is it, a 20-day lead for Joanne's office for getting new materials in advance of an upcoming meeting. And do you have a second meeting in November?
That's what I'm checking right
Because I
now.
was looking, it's almost a December thing. I think.
Wasn't it Thanksgiving time? We
Yeah,
don't?
there's only
I think it's only a single meeting.
we had
In
one
which
the
case, I'd
17th.
request the 1st of December hearing would be
Appropriate?
appropriate.
And are you willing to waive the 65-day clock?
Yeah,
Please
yes,
make
we
that
are.
statement for the record.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
we
what
have
was the date?
First meeting in December?
Yeah, it's
The 8th. Okay.
yes.
Here's what I found on the web.
Does somebody have a Siri?
that. Silence,
I
Michael.
request that people silence the cell phones.
What the hell is that?
You push the Surrey button.
I didn't do anything.
The program
In my
administrator just helped you
pocket. I
out.
supposedly silenced it. It's got its own mind, sorry.
Yes,
All right,
yes,
folks.
we do that, yes.
So you're gonna make a request to be continued to?
I'll make a motion at the request of the applicant to continue this matter to the first meeting in December, December 8th, with the understanding the applicant has waived the 65-day clock.
Second.
12-9, Barbara?
12/8, is that what somebody said? I just,
What is?
12/8.
12-8. And we,
I don't have my calendar with me. Sorry.
so Barbara made the motion, has it been seconded by anyone?
I seconded it.
Jim Raymond. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Motion is granted, so we will see you on 12/8 with a revised plan or more arguments.
Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Okay, I have, the next application is map 5, lot 54 and 54-1, Emily Investments. Joanne, do you have something you'd like to do prior to hearing from this applicant?
Yes, I have a recommendation to go into non-public.
On what basis?
Can't we- I think we'd have to discuss it in the non-public.
No, you have to state your reason in public. And do we have communication from our council?
No, just a verbal that I spoke to him on the phone today.
Okay. Yeah, it has to be communication with our attorneys, not consideration.
Do you have copies for the board members of your communication?
No,
No,
I don't
it's
have a
verbal.
communication. I have a verbal.
I figured maybe you've done a summary for us or something.
No, I was just gonna go over it with you.
So what do we need to do that? Do we need a motion to go into
We need a
non-public?
motion stating the reason, and we vote on it in
So,
public.
I have it on the agenda. It's the non-public session under RSA 91 it's right on the top of your agenda. 91 dash
The
A,
colon
colon
three.
3,
The
Roman
agenda
numeral
tonight.
2, letter L.
Consideration of
Okay, so staff's recommending we go into non-public. Does anyone want to make that motion?
Oh, sorry.
I'll make the motion for that reason, then we have to take a roll call
Yeah.
vote.
Anybody seconding the motion?
Second.
Roll call vote. David Pierce,
Yes,
Barbara Griffin,
Yes.
Tim Redmond votes yes. Gail LeBrecq,
Yes.
and Jim Raymond.
Yes.
Okay.
we will
We will discuss
we'll
it.
reconvene immediately after.
Yeah,
Right.
and the only action we can take is the consideration of the advice of our legal counsel. We can't take any more action except for that in non-public.
So how do we handle the TV recording?
The Board of Selectmen goes into the
That,
other
I
room.
asked for that permission from her this afternoon and we were denied.
And
What?
they don't like people going in there because there's confidential.
I asked for permission to do that
information. So
via staff.
They gave us this noise machine.
But how do we shut the
use.
TV off?
I'm not sure, maybe you
Neither
just
am I.
tell the, there we go, it's off. They
Okay.
heard you.
So do we,
Okay, thank
do
you,
we-
Jean. They're
There we
back.
go.
Thank you, GTV.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
So we are back on.
yeah.
Can we invite the public back in, Joanne?
Yeah, fix the sound thing.
Oh, no, I can't reach it.
Jump.
Go to the men's room. May I go now?
Go right ahead.
You have to take a 2/3 recorded vote to.
We will take a vote when you return.
But-
We are still
Yeah,
out
I'd
of
like to
session.
do the same.
We will return to public session in just a moment when our members return from the restrooms. We must be back to our regular agenda now,
Yes.
because it's not in the revised.
Did I miss anything?
We didn't do anything. Everybody back? Good. Dave, you had a motion to make?
Oh, did you announce we're back in public, or?
Well, we're back in public.
Okay. Motion to seal the minutes of the non-public session we just finished with.
Okay, been motion by Dave to make, seal the motion, minutes. Anybody want a second? Kim, Gail LaFave. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor by say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Joanne, we have an application here, map 5, lot 54 and 54-1. Could you give us the rundown?
Yes, let me just get my page.
I got 24 on the app, on the original.
Okay. And I don't think this one was changed, it was just the other two.
No, we already looked through them. We were
Yeah.
there. It was empty.
Okay, so this is an application for a 30-unit residential condo development They're naming it the Village at Hadley Station, but we made recommendation to change the name because it's too similar to the Factory Street
Right.
project. So the property is located, I think it's 2 lots south of the Shell Station, right on Mast Road. It's lot 54-1 and 54. And currently there's an old house on the property with a driveway that you can't really see the house. It's kind of set back, but they're planning to raise the house, eliminate the driveway, and eliminate the gravel that's out in the front. Just eliminate the whole entire area there, clean it up. And there's also a metal container that will be removed. The parcel is serviced by public water, public sewer, and the units will also be served by private individual trash pickup, which we weren't sure what they meant by that, because if they're planning to have somebody come in and have a dumpster on site and somebody would just pick up the dumpster, or possibly having separate containers for each unit and a private service go in. The town does not pick up trash or recycling from multifamily developments. So the problem with the plan starting off is the lack of frontage. And I included information in here about why the town feels that there is no frontage, that map 54 and 54-1 are 2 separate lots, and map 54-1 is the one with the frontage. However, map 54 would be the one that would be developed. So in doing so, I did send my staff report to the applicant, and his attorney did send the board a letter, I think it was yesterday, basically saying why they disagree with our conclusion, and they're arguing that, yes, they do have frontage because they are 1 lot versus 2 lots.
Questions for the staff and from board members?
So the consequence of that, if they don't have frontage, is what?
So the consequence that I had, actually I had recommended in my report, just go to that page. Oops.
Page 33.
33, thank you. You're quick.
I've been reading it.
I can't even get to page 33, the pages won't turn. Okay, so what I had recommended was that the board find the plan incomplete, or the application incomplete, and that I recommended that the applicant apply to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for relief of the lack of frontage. And they would also have to go to the Board of Selectmen and then reapply to the Planning Board if the ZBA approval is granted.
Okay. May I ask a question that goes beyond that, Tim? We try to identify threshold issues on plans that require major decisions. You've just identified one that's, other than that, Miss Lincoln House Play, but are there any other planning issues that would consider threshold issues, or are they in the nature of the normal planning considerations that we have?
The way that I'm interpreting this is that besides the lack of frontage, the applicant, there was a plan that was approved. The abutter is the Langleys, and then there's a condo consisting of some professional offices, and then there's I think it's a radio tower. I'm not sure what type of tower, but there's a tower that also owns
It's a cell
property.
tower.
Cell tower that also owns property there.
Well, that's a Langley property.
Langley
is it not?
leases that, I believe.
No, the tower actually, they own it.
Okay, good.
It's part of when they broke off some of that land to form a
Okay.
condo. So anyway, the plan that was previously approved for the Langleys showed a portion of this lot, and it was conditioned in the application and in the approval that Mr., can't remember his name, the applicant.
Mr. Monty.
Mr. Monty would need to provide, when he goes to develop this lot, he would need to provide and show where the right-of-way would be, but it needs to be agreed upon by the Langleys, the people who own the condo association, and the town.
So the right-of-way that goes over to Tatro Drive.
Correct.
Okay.
And for some reason, there seems to be an issue with exactly where this right-of-way will be located. I did speak with the Langleys, and they have not heard from Mr. Monty, so that there hasn't been any discussion about where this right-of-way will be, and I feel that the town, the planning board especially, needs to see this right-of-way before these plans are approved, and it doesn't seem to have really progressed to anything at this point. And the third issue is the fact that we have another drainage, I don't know if you'd call it a detention pond, Scott, what is it?
So some of the grading of their detention pond is coming onto the town's rail trail parcel.
So it's coming onto the town's rail trail and also going over onto
A large portion is onto a Langley
the
property.
Langley
yeah.
property, and the Langleys have not signed off on this application, and they have, they haven't granted any rights for the location of that. So those are the three large issues.
So it's frontage, the defining of the right-of-way to Tatro Drive, and the drainage pond, singular,
On town and
it
private
goes onto
property.
Langley property and the rail trail property.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure I knew what all three were.
Joanne, please explain or clarify for me the applicant's sheet 2 of 23. It says that there's an access easement from Tatro Drive under a plan 36-725.
But that plan, I don't have that sheet in front of me, but that plan that they're referring to shows that here's where it could go, but there's a notation that says the town and the applicant, no, the town and the Langleys have to approve that location before it's, something's recorded saying this is where
So
it
you're
is.
saying plan 36-725 hasn't been recorded?
36-725 was for a project, I think it was the veterinarian project, veterinarian hospital, whatever it was, that never materialized. And that project, there was a condition that had, of the Langleys, that they had to work with Mr. Monty, they all had to work together with the town and decide where that easement was going. They showed an easement, but it was just like, here's where it could go.
When the applicant comes to the table, he'll explain the legitimacy of,
There's
Wow.
not a permanent easement there currently.
but it's shown on their application.
But the threshold issue that we need to decide is, do we accept the plan or find that it's incomplete? And then decide how we want to proceed if we find it incomplete today with the applicant before us to make a presentation or not. Correct?
Well, if it's found to be incomplete, we will not have a presentation.
Well, we've allowed on a brief conceptual plan, a presentation.
Why even hear it if it's incomplete?
Well, for efficiency, we can do that. You don't have to, but we have in the past. So you get the overview and
I see the
identify
point.
the issue. So I would make a motion that we find that the plan is incomplete because it lacks frontage and the applicant has not taken the routes that Joanne laid out in her report of a variance from the ZBA and approval from the selectmen under RC 674-41.
Second.
Motion's been made and been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Call for a vote. All those in favor of Jim's motion to find the plan incomplete for the 3 reasons stated, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Well, the reason is lack of frontage.
There weren't 3 reasons in the motion.
There's one reason, lack of frontage.
One reason.
The other I'm treating as planning issues that we would
Okay,
address.
so for one reason, no frontage. Okay, so the motion was voted on, and it is 4 to 4. Did you vote?
Yeah,
What did you vote?
yeah, in favor.
Yes.
You voted yes.
Yes.
And David, you voted no.
I voted yes.
You voted yes for the motion to deny.
To find it incomplete.
Find it
Find it
incomplete. Yeah,
incomplete.
we're not denying.
Not deny. My wrong word. Find it
Okay.
incomplete. So it's a 5-0. Is that what you got?
And I would, I know you don't like this, I would request that we grant the applicant a short period of time, and you're good at saying short, to at least address those issues that Joanne just identified, to see if they are, we're missing a solution that they have in hand.
Okay.
But we don't need to get into
But we'd
the-
limit the discussion to the motion that we found it incomplete for those reasons?
No, we're not, we've made that decision.
No, but if you said you want to address that.
No, I'm gonna let them propose, address on a conceptual basis only, the access easement over the adjoining lot.
Okay, the other 3 items.
And I forget what the other one was.
Detention pond.
Detention pond, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we'll invite the applicant to come up.
Good evening.
Real good.
For the record, my name is Doug McGuire with the Dubay Group, here representing the owner of the property, Hemley Investments, LLC. Thank you for the consideration of at least having some discussion on this. I think it would be helpful to get some feedback on some of these items. Just if you can give me any direction, I understand you had a closed session meeting. I'm not looking for the details of that. However, I know that our team's counsel did submit that letter, and, you know, there were a number of points that were addressed. I mean, this property in its exact form was conditionally approved as a courthouse in 2009. And so I'm just wondering, is that issue of frontage, has there been new information from a legal standpoint that's been found, or is there any direction that we can get? Because, I mean, obviously, the attorney did provide, our attorney provided some pretty sound arguments as to why the frontage issue should not be. And there's been precedent set in town by this board with previous approvals. So I just was looking for a little direction on that, just so I can at least come back to my legal counsel and provide an update.
May I address that briefly?
If you don't, I will. Go ahead.
One, we considered the letter and didn't agree with it, and I don't think we need to address our legal reasons. Two, we have taken this position on this board in the past and will continue to do that we are not bound by prior decisions if they're not precedent that binds us. Otherwise, we could never correct our errors. And if we determine that a position previously taken was incomplete or incorrect, we can correct that.
Okay.
Doug, I would like you to cite the prior approvals that you stated that we,
It's in the attorney letter on the first page.
well, I didn't read it, so I'm just making sure. If it is, I'll read the attorney.
Yeah, it's out there.
I didn't read it. I'm
Attorneys can have
saying-
different views.
I just like to know if it's being stated that we have precedents, and I'd like to know that.
It's in the letter.
I'll read them. Thank you.
It's a very complete letter. I just didn't agree with it.
So you're asking for guidance on direction? Is that what you're asking for?
Well, I think got the feedback I was looking for on that, and that way I can, at least advise our team and our council as to the position that the board took on that. I'll move on from that piece and just quickly talk about a couple of those other items. And that way, if we can get resolution to the initial items, then we can move forward. We do have a complete plan set besides that, so the goal will be to bring that to the next level. With regards to the access, and you stated this before I came up, that there was a recorded and approved plan citing this access, as Joanne stated. Our position was simply that we're not contesting that this needs to be adjusted, it needs to be finalized, and it needs to be codified with the Langleys, of which Mr. Monty has been in contact. I don't know, Joanne, when you reached out, but I know that Mr. Monty has been in discussion with the Langleys, and his attorney's been drafting some draft language for that. But our thought was, don't come with a finalized agreement or meets and bounds location of a access easement until we at least present this to the board and make sure that the location that we're proposing is appropriate. If things change, or if there was any feedback from staff that would cause any changes to that, it wouldn't have made sense to do that step. So we would recognize that that would be a condition of any eventual approval, that full language and a codified easement with a specific layout of that said easement would be on the plan. I just didn't think it needed to be as part of the completeness checklist.
Tim?
First of all, we did not deny acceptance on that basis. We understood that would be a matter that would be addressed. But you show on sheet 5 of 23 what appears to be a location of an access driveway with some detail. Is that still at this point, a conceptual? Would you characterize that subject to, there's no agreement as to that?
So no, what we have shown.
We're not setting you up, I'm just trying to understand
No,
what's presented.
We believe this is exactly where the drive should go. It works well with the wetlands, it works well with the existing crossing areas. So this would be our position, and this is what we're going to present to the Langleys, and already have presented. I think they just need to work through the language. And so we would show an easement specifically over that area. And my thought was that would be done as a separate easement plan, like an exhibit plan, along with language associated with that.
I just wanted to remind Doug, it's not, because it was the Langleys in the language of the previous plans, but now they've sold off some of that land to the other condominium. They also need to be included.
Well, and so to clarify on that piece, I mean, obviously this could be, this is our position, but from my team's legal counsel standpoint, they reviewed the documentation, and the rights of access were granted as part of those units previous to them taking control of those. So they are bound, and there is a deed reference that talks about that on that property. So, I mean, obviously, we're happy to take any feedback or anything, but I don't think we need any legal agreement with that entity, because they are bound legally already in purchasing of their land and before their condominium association was established.
Could you supply us with that?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank
I
you.
think Dan made reference to it, but I don't know if he copied it it was in an email in one of our discussions, but yes, we'll get copies of that. And so our thought is that position is, so it should be a relatively straightforward process to finalize this access part of the plan, because we have one entity that already is legally bound to do so, and we just need to finalize the details.
Okay.
So that's that piece. With regards to the rail trail and grading and those type of things, my position is that obviously the pond is fully contained on our property. We are showing, sheet 8 of the grading and drainage plan, and I think the area that Scott was referring to at the beginning of the meeting was that there's a swale line through the area that is within the limits of that rail trail parcel. Obviously, the pond and, you know, the slopes and everything of the pond are within the confines of our property. We are on the Langley's property, and that will have we're going to have drainage easement for that. That will be separate and part of the easement agreement. But, I mean, we fully understand that obviously we can't just put that there without an easement. So we will have an easement from the Langley's. I don't believe we need anything with regards to the rail trail.
Could you describe the swale, please, Doug, because I want to know what you're talking about the
Sure,
swale.
sure. So
It's on sheet 8, Tim.
Doug's going to do it right there in front of you.
So just,
I mean, the purpose, is it pre-existing, are you constructing it? That's
Correct.
what I want to know.
yeah, exactly. So what happens with the drainage on this property right now, in the pre-development condition, is the water splits as it comes down the hill and comes through to our property. It splits to two locations. There's a 12-inch culvert that crosses under the rail trail here, and then there's no other crossings on the rail trail until you get off property on the Langley property where there's a 36-inch RCP. So what happens is the drainage splits, and our modeling shows this, and a portion of the property kind of comes to the edge of the rail trail and then drains, because the rail trail from an elevation standpoint is higher than anything else. So, I mean, unless it was like a massive flood, it wouldn't go over the rail trail. It directs to each side. So you get a directed flow to this point here, and you get directed flow to this point. Because we're altering all the land right adjacent to our property line as part of our pond construction, I wanted to make sure it was very much understood that from a drainage standpoint, and this is for the benefit of the rail trail, that water still very clearly goes through anything left. I mean, we're intercepting and capturing most of it, but anything from the rail trail or anything from our property that isn't captured by our pond system, like anything, you know, outboard of our pavement area, there's about, you know, 10 feet of pavement or grass area here. Any of that area that goes, it still breaks in that same manner. The other thing to consider is that in this area, there's an existing driveway that services the single-family home that's there. That's gonna have to be removed and dressed up. And so in dressing that up, you can see I have some modification to the grade here, just to flatten this out and provide some continuity on the trail. I assume that there'd be some discussion with the rail, you know, with this board about the rail trail, whether, you know, they want us to show a section of nip pack through here, as we've done on other projects, to, you know, to clear up the driveway, because we don't want it to feel like a driveway if it's not, you know. And loam and seed, we have proposals to loam and seed the area of gravel here, and to loam and seed the impacted areas on this side. So I consider this drainage as something that was already there, but just reshaping and cleaning that area up. You know, if it's not something that the town wants to see, we can leave it off, but you know, we can't really be then responsible for any puddling or issues that are happening as part of our construction right adjacent to the rail trail, unless we can at least shape that as it continues to do today. So that's our standpoint on that part of it.
So two questions. Obviously, you're going to provide a drainage report that shows your pre-development and post-development runoff.
Yes,
You'll take care of that.
It's already been
Okay,
done
good.
and has gone through one review with
And
Scott.
second question, you talked about the 36-inch RCP that runs under the trail farther down. I've looked at that pipe for 15 years and I've driven by there or more. That pipe is about half full of debris.
It's one of my comments.
Have you calculated the lack of flow through that because it's blocked, or are you going to clean it out and improve the swale to get that pipe running free? That's a question for later, for you to talk about at a later date.
Fair enough.
Okay, I don't want an answer now, I just was bringing that, because I've looked at that for years. Okay.
I actually commented on that, to have them clean it as part of it.
The swale has to be lowered significantly for that to run free.
While we have what you're talking in front of us, are there any other major planning issues that we need to identify at this time without taking up time? 'Cause Tim has some of that.
I don't know how major it is, but I have I have a concern with the drainage pattern that they're showing, so I don't know if you have plans in front of you, but there's.
You know what I'd like to do with that, Scott? I think maybe you ought to work with them directly, because
Okay.
this is something we don't need to discuss.
Just want to
in the meeting.
identify what
Yeah.
issues are.
You can identify
It's
it.
sort
You-
of in the comments,
you
right?
can send
The
it-
drainage issues?
Yeah,
You
I
can-
mean,
yeah.
that's a big one for me.
You can relay to Doug your concerns, and then you
He's
guys will
seen the
work on it.
comments and we can discuss.
We're not gonna figure the drainage here tonight.
Yeah, I've done one review with Scott, I've gotten some additional comments. I'd like to meet with you at some point, you know, we can just
Sure.
kind of go through that directly, and I'm
Mhm.
sure we could come up with some resolution. I have some ideas on that piece you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay. And you weren't looking for anything from us as a avenue to discuss the lack of frontage. That's nothing you want to talk about with us, because that's not germane to our discussion.
Well, I think it's, I appreciate you asking that. And again, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know all the rules on how you, I know you had that non-public, and I don't know if does it make sense for our council to talk with, I know that the town's legal counsel has received that letter. We didn't receive anything in writing. I know Joanne spoke with him.
Just for purposes of the record, the date of the letter is yesterday, October 12th.
Oh, and understood, and we weren't expecting necessarily to have something in writing,
No.
but would like to maybe have the opportunity to hear, or to follow up, or to continue. Maybe there's some additional information that could be provided that would ease some concerns, and I don't know if you'd be at liberty as a board to say what pieces, I mean, I read our attorney's letter myself, and not being an attorney, I mean, I thought there were some pretty sound discussion and arguments in there. If there were items that you weren't comfortable with, or that you had additional concerns, or that anything that you could share that I could pass along would be helpful. You know, we only received Joanne's package on Friday of last week, stating that she recommends it's not complete and that we have to go to the ZBA. So we had to scramble a bit on our end as well. And so our attorney got that long letter put together as quickly as he could.
We're not,
And so,
We're not pinning blame on anyone.
we're not, I just, for members of the public, I didn't want them to think that
oh, no.
we had had the letter for a long time and your attorney hadn't heard anything. That's the only reason I said that.
So you already have the answer that I was gonna even bring up a thing about the ZBA and then back to the selectmen, or whatever you gotta do to get the frontage issue.
The selectmen?
In case, well,
You look at 67441, there's a process you have to go through with them too.
only because the prior applicant had to go to the selectmen to get permission to cross the rail trail. If you already have a pre-existing permission to cross the rail trail, I don't know.
No, that's different, This is a frontage
This
issue.
has to do with frontage
Frontage.
after
Yeah,
after
read
the
the
variance
statute.
relief.
You're not proposing a,
41.
41?
you're not proposing a driveway from Mass Road then, are you?
No.
No, this has nothing to do, this is
Yeah, I
just
thought maybe
frontage.
that was
No, it's
part
just
of
a
the plan. I
frontage
hadn't
issue,
looked
it's
at it.
two steps, and your attorney will smell and know about them.
Okay, so it's got nothing to do with going to the board, so
Well, it does, but for a different issue.
it's a different issue.
Tim, stop talking about it.
Good. All right, so anyone else have anything else for this
I guess to
applicant?
be, go on, I'm sorry, Dave.
Question for Scott.
Yes.
You commented on the 36-inch concrete pipe
Mm-hmm.
under the rail trail. That outlets into a 15-inch pipe under Mass Road. The fact that the 36-inch pipe is diminished because
Mhm.
it's partly filled, is that a serious consideration, the fact that it feeds a much smaller?
While they're there, I don't see why there's any harm in having their contractor clean the pipe where their stormwater is headed towards it, so. I didn't go downstream further, to be honest.
In my
Yeah.
15 years of observations, there's never been any pooling of water between the outlet and the inlet.
Okay. I didn't think there's any harm in having them clean the pipe while they're there.
Tim, can we discuss procedurally where we go from here?
Yes, please, let's go get moving.
There's no statutory procedure if we do not accept the application on continue it, but our practice has been to allow the applicant to request a continuance or go to the boards and then come back. And that's really a choice of the applicant. There's no further action we can take at this time until we accept it, but it's not a denial of an application.
If it were okay with the board, I would request that we be continued only for the ability, because as we said, we had a very tight time frame to have any response from the town's legal counsel. So if we could, I mean, obviously, if the town's legal counsel comes back with an unfavorable,
I'm going to stop right there. The town council does not make the decisions of this board.
He just advises us.
He advises us, and if you have an issue, it's addressed to us, not our town council.
okay, understood.
And the advice of town council, obviously, we don't disclose because that's attorney-client privilege. So you have to come back to
I guess
us.
I'll ask this question then. If we were to continue, do you anticipate receiving any additional information or counsel from the town's legal counsel that may assuage your decision on the incompleteness?
Only if your attorney provides new information to our town council that he can consider, I'm guessing.
Well, or to us,
Or
because
to
we'll
us.
make the decision.
But it has to be new information.
Okay, well, I would, because our legal counsel isn't here, I would like to request that continuance. Obviously, we could withdraw without prejudice if we don't have anything of substantial to be able to bring forward to you for new information. But I would, at this point, like to ask to be continued if we could.
And do you have a date you'd like to say?
The next available date would be fine.
What's the agenda look like for the next meeting, Joanne?
October 27th.
There is Eversource on the agenda.
Well, and I think we just moved something there.
We have a lot line adjustment and subdivision. We have the multifamily that was continued from this evening.
Right.
We have Eversource and the Vinnie Urban that was continued from this evening.
So we already have 4 on the agenda?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Board members,
You wouldn't get a long consideration because of the other, is the agenda.
so if they don't come on the 27th, that puts them out until November the 17th, which is a month later.
November, oh yeah, that's right, because we do a
It's a
workshop.
full month later. So we.
Yeah, I think it's beneficial to have the short turnaround. Obviously, we'll be able to speak with legal counsel, and if there's no additional information, then we can at least move forward under, the ZBA process right away and take that next step.
So you want to request a continuance to 10/27?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to continue this application to that day. We have not accepted it, so and the applicant understands this, the 65-day clock, so-called, does not run. There's been no acceptance.
That's right.
But we'll.
Could you also put in your motion they do not have to renotice?
We do not need to.
We're not going to require that they
No,
renotice?
not for that. That's why we're continuing to a date certain.
Okay, so renoticing is not required.
You're continuing to the 27th?
27.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
And the purpose of the continuation?
Is to allow the applicant to come forward
With,
any additional information that.
or an alternate process.
Yeah, well, we've laid out their alternate
If
process.
they agree to it or not, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
Did anybody second the motion? Jim made the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Barbara, to grant a continuance request to 10/27. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Motion granted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne, is this our last application?
We have one more.
I say, is this coming up? Our
Yes, this is the last one coming up.
Did we continue Prospect Street?
Yes.
We already did.
Yeah.
Continue.
Oh, yeah.
So which one are we hearing now?
Chattel Avenue got continued.
We're hearing
New Boston Road,
And
the wetlands
Cross
garage.
Garage.
So no, what's the name of it?
The last one.
The name of it
Yes,
is
map 3414.
Excellent. And,
Scott, I think, let's see, map 32, lot 1-1.
The New Boston Road one we're
Yes.
hearing?
Yes,
So this is just out of 50 feet?
correct.
Yes.
Okay. And, okay. Joe, will you, Joanne, before they come back, will you remind us that we already have their packet, so we'll bring it?
Oh,
I
okay.
won't think of that.
What's that, Jim?
For the one we just heard, the Villages of Hadley
So
Station.
everybody has to re-bring their materials. So
You
they have
want
to
to bring the others too that were continued.
Why don't you send us a reminder, because I don't know
All right.
what they are.
Or everybody just bring both weeks' packets and life is good.
If you can
Okay,
stuff
this is
everything
map
back
32-1, lot 1-1, New Boston Road. Joanne, could you please run it for us?
Yep. So we're looking at a request, wait, let me just find my agenda here. We're looking at a request for a conditional use permit for relief of the outer 50 feet of the 100-foot wetland surface water conservation district for the purpose of building a 600 square foot garage that will be located within the outer 50 feet of the wetland buffer. The conditional use permit is also required per section 13.3.4 of the zoning ordinance to allow the garage to be built approximately 75 feet from Bog Brook, a designated surface water. The owner is Scott Hall, and the property is located at 105 New Boston Road.
Does anybody have any questions for staff?
Is this application complete?
Yes, the application is complete
It has no regional impact?
and has no regional
I
impact.
move that we accept it for hearing, find it complete and accept it for hearing, and find there's no regional impact.
Second.
There's been a motion to faint it. Is there any waivers requested, Joanne? No.
This is solely for
No,
conditional use
solely
permit.
an outer,
It's not a,
it's
it's
a
not a
wetlands
site
thing.
plan.
Kind of like what I ask every time.
It's not a
Good.
site plan, it's a conditional
It's a good
use.
question.
Okay, motion by Jim, seconded by David. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion passes.
Could we have Joanne summarize briefly the staff recommendations or reports, so we don't have to go through them in detail? Joanne,
Okay.
summarize page
So
37, 38.
the Concom has, they voted that the relief should be granted, and they basically said the applicant should use best management practices for erosion control during construction to protect the brook. They had no other issues of concern, but they would like no further impacts within the buffer, and they support the request as this is an existing lot. Police had no comment, fire has no objections. They wanted to make the parties aware that the new garage will be subject to review and fire code compliance. The owner may need to address fire separation from the existing home, so you need to check with the fire department. DPW recommends the installation of infiltration drains around the perimeter of the proposed garage to limit the amount of site runoff. The New Hampshire DES shoreline approval has been granted, and findings of fact would be that the applicant meets the criteria for a conditional use permit and the applicant meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance.
I'm going to ask the question that I've asked several times before we get to your conditions of approval. Number 8, DPW recommends the installation of an infiltration drain. Do you want to rephrase that for purposes of the condition of approval?
Yeah, we can rephrase it to shall again. Once again, I thought I wasn't able to pose that.
You're being too subtle. Okay, so we're gonna, when we get there, we can.
Does anybody have any questions for the staff?
And Joanne, we have to make specific findings for
Yes, so-
conditional. Do you have those set out for us?
They have, in packet itself, there is a report from the wetland scientist.
But we have our conditional use permit.
They have a letter in here, dated
Is that
September
laid out?
20th, that addresses it.
I haven't-
With field stones on the top of it.
Yeah, there's two of them. Okay.
Okay, anybody have any questions for staff at this point before we move on?
I'm eager to hear from the applicant.
Well, I'm working on my way to that direction. Okay, at this point, we'll ask the applicants to identify themselves and speak, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name's Carl Foley from Fieldstone Land Consultants, and I'm here with Scott Hall. Yeah, you recognize the face, Carl.
How's Jen?
She's doing well, thank you. Doing well. As Joanne stated, we're here for a conditional use permit. I can go over briefly with the board with regards to the plan. I did bring color 11 by 17, so we kind of can follow, if that would be helpful.
I can take those.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, oh, you can go.
Scott, what does it say in your t-shirt? I can't read it.
Cabinetry by SM Hall. I have a business right here on Main Street. If you guys need a new kitchen, please give me a call. So, little plug there.
I thought you wanted me to ask the question.
Well, actually, this application is, a dream for me. We've got a new
'Cause you
kitchen
wanted
and
a
a
new
garage.
kitchen.
I want a new garage too, so there you go.
So, would I be able to just stand up?
Carl, do whatever you like.
Okay.
It's very low pressure.
So with regards to the lot itself, it's 1.7 acres. It's between, is it Tell Life or Tell Live?
Rhett Life.
Rhett Life. And then Bog Brook's right here. Hermsdorf is just beyond over here. What we have here is an existing house that was built in 1967, which is depicted in orange on your sheet. What Mr. Hall is proposing is to build a 600 square foot garage located in this location here. The purple lines right here and here depicted the 50-foot waterfront off of right here, Bog Brook, and then a 100-foot buffer. The septic itself is going to be, the relocated septic is going to be here in the yellow. The existing septic tank is here, and actually where the garage sits now, there's actually like a raised bed from where the leach field sits now, and that's the reason for the relocation. What you're looking at right now is the approved septic plan from the state of New Hampshire. It's just marked up color-wise for you. As Joanne indicated, not only did we receive state shoreland, also favorable comments from Conscom, we were able to get the residents out of the floodplain, which is very helpful for Mr. Hall.
Absolutely.
So we have an elevation chart and we did a LOMA as well for the property. So basically, this is the last step before the board is to request a conditional use permit. I could go through the criteria if you'd like.
We'll see if there's any questions for you before you redo that process.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant? If not, would staff, would you like, Joanne, would you like us to go through the conditional use
Or
permit?
can we just take the report as presented and just, it's in the record, so we don't have to read it? We can read it ourselves.
We can do whatever you suggest, Kim, if it'll shorten.
I think as long as the applicant, and we have him do this, is just confirm that the presentation, the findings in the report are correct, we can act on it.
The staff report?
No, your.
Your September 20th.
Oh, yes, we stand by that, yes. The wetland scientist, yes.
Okay. So,
Before we
For the
go,
record.
before we go there, I do have a question. I'm looking at your approved septic plan, I believe. Is that what this is? Is
That
this
is
the approved
correct.
septic
Yeah.
plan? Are you going to tie the garage into the tank and into the septic system, or is it independent of the garage? I'm looking for
No, there's no plumbing in the garage.
Okay, I'm just looking
So
for...
underneath the garage, you're seeing like an existing tank, and then
I saw the existing tank.
there's also a second tank
I
at
see
our
the new
property
tank.
right now
Yep.
that's getting removed. That's like a pump chamber.
Okay. And the new tank
Is in yellow.
has the 3 riser holes on it.
Exactly.
Okay. And that is just being replumbed from the existing 3-bedroom house?
Exactly.
And the garage is not going to be hooked into?
No plumbing from the
Okay,
garage.
I just wanted to make sure I was reading the plan correctly. Thank you, Carl. All right, if no one else has anything, we can move on to the conditional use permit.
Joanne, what findings do we need to make?
Well, I listed the findings on page 38, which basically just said the applicant meets the criteria
Yeah,
for a conditional use
But we
permit.
have to make specific findings on a conditional use permit, so where are they? I can't remember.
Oh, there, you're looking for,
Yeah, we have to make
yeah,
specific.
we have the report right here.
But we can't just do it by reference.
Before we act on the conditional use permit, Jim, I need to open a public hearing
Oh, I'm sorry.
for purposes of procedure.
This is the, they've submitted, they
So-
addressed each one.
If no one has any other questions for the applicant, I'm going to ask to open the public hearing. Since no one is here, I am going to close the public hearing.
Oh, here it is, okay.
All right, Jim, we have taken care of the public hearing, so let's hold a discussion on the application.
Okay, I'm referring to the conditional use permit criteria that the applicant provided. It's in the packet and sets out the
It's under,
findings under section 15 of the zoning ordinance.
it's under planning, the planning board section of the ordinance.
Okay, I'm not looking for it now, it's in the zoning ordinance, and this is a variation from the wetlands. So, I'm gonna move that we find that each of the conditions listed into section 15.4.1.4.1 through 15.4.1.4.6 were satisfied on the basis of the applicant's presentation.
Written presentation or verbal presentation?
Both, just written and verbal, because he did it in writing and then he confirmed it. And that we grant the conditional use permit with the conditions that are in the staff report, page 38, with the modification of condition 8, that infiltration drains shall be installed around the perimeter of the proposed garage. Scott, do you need to see the plans for those?
If they get put on here, that'd be great, and maybe a small detail of what it is.
Of the infiltration?
Yeah, so there's probably some white space on here where you can fit a small detail.
Why don't we
instead
show
of having it
show
flat.
satisfactory to the town engineer and as shown on the revised plan? Is that okay to impose on you?
That's good, yeah, that works for me. You won't get any more shoulds on my conditions.
So 8 changes to the owner shall install infiltration drains around the
I've
perimeter.
changed a lot of them.
Yeah,
But I missed that
but with that stuff about.
You need to tell me, so I'll stop doing it.
How many times have you had to be told?
Are we good?
Well, this was the first time.
There you go.
So-
Mr. Chair.
Quick learner. Yes, Carl.
If I may, with regards to, we have no problems with the conditions of approval as stated, and with the exception of number 5, if I may. This is an existing law of
Oh,
record.
yeah, this
Oh, yeah, we don't
shouldn't
need
be
that.
there. You're
5 is
correct. It's just
stricken.
in the site plan or subdivision, so that's
Are
right.
you gonna, we're gonna
Yeah,
strike
so
5
Yeah,
I'm
just
gonna
strike
amend
it.
my motion, strike 5,
and modify 8?
and modify 8.
And if I may just ask one last
And
question.
what's number 2? Provide final PDF. What-
A copy of the plan.
Yeah,
would be-
you left out the word plan. Okay, it's gonna be a final plan as amended by condition 8 with the infiltration drain.
Did you have something else, Carl?
I'm
I
sorry.
just was going to ask the board, I know in previous, let's just say, there's a 30-day appeal period, correct?
Yeah.
I was wondering, does the board entertain a request to waive that 30-day appeal?
That's your call. We can't do that.
Okay. Well, I guess it's just for,
That's your risk. If somebody appeals it, some abutter appeals this decision.
I've been to other boards before where they've actually,
We can't do that
you can't
statutory.
do the statutory?
No, it's
Okay.
statutory
Yeah,
bill
that's
rate.
somebody else's right, it's not ours to waive.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good to know, thank
Yeah,
you.
but we're not,
That's fine, we're not setting precedent here, it's just a question.
yeah, but we can't, well, we don't care. We're not gonna appeal our own decision.
No, but you lock yourself in though, unfortunately. All right, anything else? You made a motion to grant the conditional use permit based on the applicant's
Yeah, and if we.
written and verbal
Yeah,
statements.
we made the findings set out that are in his report.
So Jim has made the motion. Does anybody want to second Jim's motion?
And just to confirm, we've amended the motion by putting in a number 2 final plan, taking out number 5, because for the reasons you stated.
And reconstructing it.
And revising number 8.
I know. So you can.
Gail, speak up quick.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Pierce. Let's get you to second the motion, beat those two.
Oh,
Okay, we have a motion to grant a conditional use permit based on the criteria and the statements of the applicant. Any discussion on the motion to grant? Seeing none,
do we want to include the findings of fact that Joanne had put in there?
where are they?
Just on the suggested conditions of approval, the applicant meets the criteria.
Yeah, we have to make those findings.
Right.
They should-
Okay,
Right.
so
Yeah.
Jim, will you include those in your motion? the
Yes, I
findings
thought
of
I
fact?
did, yeah, we made the findings set out in the list.
Yes, on the second.
Okay, the motion's been amended to include the findings of fact number 1 and 2. So, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I didn't hear a lot of ayes.
No,
Okay.
we all said it. I want to.
Are you tired? You can't speak?
I do want to commend the applicant on the quality of the materials. It's refreshing.
And the brevity of your presentation. We really appreciate that.
For that, we won't hold you to the appeal period.
All right, I have one very quick item to know everybody wants to go home. At the last meeting, the board discussed the fence down at the Angel Point project. And the board decided to require that all the plantings on the inside of the fence be moved to the exterior of the fence. I would like the board to reconsider that, not tonight, but, or maybe tonight. Unfortunately, Collis and Kimberly are not here, who were the prime movers on that motion, and I don't want to subvert them.
Yeah, we can't.
I was hoping that we could let them leave the trees on the inside of the fence, because the trees don't provide screening. The trees provide shade for the backyards. So if we allowed them to leave the couple of trees that were planted inside the fence and not drag them to the outside, I think that would be an appropriate move, because those are shade trees, they're not screened.
Haven't they already moved everything you're gonna
No, the
move?
trees are still
There's
inside
like
the fence.
4 trees that are still on the inside of this. They're tall trees that you can actually see
I
from the
thought
road
that when
now.
I went by and talked to the guy, that the landscape people were coming and that they were putting stuff on the
It looks like the
outside.
landscaping is done because
They
they mulched
duplicated
just
some
the
of
other
them,
day.
they actually added some plantings.
And they replaced all the dead ones.
Right,
But
because they just said, let's.
I was hoping this board would consider the decision to allow them to leave the shade trees on the inside of the fence, where when they're sitting on their patios, the shade trees would actually shade their patio.
I was down here, but there's nothing that
Can't they do both?
prevents them from having extra trees.
No, but the motion was to move everything that was planted under the original
The
plan.
reason for that was that they didn't. think
Want
there
the
would be-
white fence.
They didn't want the big long line of white fence going along Mass Road, because it's not just this one phase that's done now, it's the other phase as well.
I don't know.
So they wanted the
What-
plantings to break
I would
that
like to
up.
bring this up to the next meeting,
All
if
right,
it
yeah,
hasn't
because
been
we
done.
can't, they were the main.
Well, they were the main
objectors.
people who wanted the objection.
So we can take a look at it in the meantime, and maybe they'll
All
fix
right,
all the work.
so motion to adjourn.
I will.
I'll second.
He's sitting in the adjournment seat.
I am, yeah. You gotta take
Let me
advantage
see
of
your
it.
sweatshirt. Finally get one of those Devanzas?
It's under here, I'll
Motion to adjourn by Jim and Gail. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? I heard an aye out of
Well,
Barbara.
I got an eye on that one. I've
Thank you.
just been sitting here.
Thank you, GTV. We
listening
are
to
all
the
done.
rain, hoping my